Chapter 1919. Jiang originally thought that the three divine kings and Xianlingzi would stop him, so he was prepared to fight. Who knew that the two of them were indifferent and full of confidence in Su Fang? Jiang couldn't help but be surprised. Do they think this little bastard has the ability to defeat Xingyue? Su Fang used his movement technique, Earth Ripple Step, and borrowed the power of the earth. At the same time, he activated his flying divine weapon and retreated. Ji Xingyue, you're just a useless person who relies on the power of the Ji people. I, Mo Fenghua, don't dare to fight you, but that doesn't mean you could defeat me. Su Fang shouted as he retreated, looking furious. Do I need to rely on the power of the Ji people to kill a bastard like you? Ji Xingyue sneered in disdain and attacked Su Fang fiercely. Su Fang's winged divine weapon was a pinnacle middle-grade divine weapon that the three divine lords had painstakingly forged. Su Fang had unleashed almost all of its power, and coupled with his movement divine ability, Ji Xingyue was unable to do anything to Su Fang despite his extraordinary strength. Bastard, fight me head-on if you have the guts. Ji Xingyue originally thought that suppressing a true immortal would be an easy task, but who knew that things didn't go as he wished. After all, he was young, and although his cultivation wasn't bad, his Dao heart lacked stability, so he quickly became anxious. Ji Xingyue, fight me head-on if you don't have the guts. Su Fang taunted. Jiang said in a low voice, I promise you that as long as you can defeat Xingyue, I won't interfere in your life and death battle with Fan Su, and I won't force you to return to the Ji people. If you lose, you can either obediently return to the Ji people with me, or cancel your blood oath with Fan Su. Thank you, Lord Jiang. Su Fang suddenly laughed domineeringly. Instead of retreating, he advanced and attacked Ji Xingyue. You're courting death. Moon erosion technique, suppress. Ji Xingyue snickered in disdain and formed an astonishing hand seal. The pure white Xian Guang condensed into a bright full moon, emitting a cold aura. The moonlight shrouded Su Fang, making Su Fang feel as if his divine body and divine aperture were frozen. Then, the full moon quickly turned into a half moon, as if a lunar eclipse was taking place. What was even more strange was that the moonlight that enveloped Su Fang's body also dispersed. At the same time, it also took away Su Fang's life force. Shun Yuan and Yuan Shinora were also rapidly disappearing. You think you can suppress me, Mo Fenghua, with your petty tricks? Break! Su Fang punched out. Boom! Boom! The illusory images of 9 mountains condensed around him, and they quickly became real. Moreover, the mountains exuded an astonishing flame divine might, as if they were 9 real volcanoes. Wherever the divine might of the flames swept out, the strange power of the lunar eclipse instantly vanished. Then, the 9 mountains flew towards Ji Xingyue, and the terrifying force of the collision caused his flesh to become a bloody mess. Blood splattered everywhere, and the sound of bones shattering could be heard from his body. At the same time, a flame with a primordial aura wrapped around Ji Xingyue's body, and it burned furiously. Ji Eng's divine light instantly changed. After forming a hand seal, he shot out a gray Xianguang that landed on Ji Xingyue's body. An astonishing power of time circulated around Ji Xingyue's body. Time flowed in reverse around Ji Xingyue's body, and the flames on his body were quickly extinguished. The injuries on his divine body also rapidly healed. In a short span of 5 breaths, Ji Xingyue had returned to normal, as if nothing had happened to him. The great Tao of time was just that astonishing. It could actually reverse the flow of time and reverse events that had already occurred. Although Ji Xingyue had been saved by Jiang, he still felt a lingering fear. He looked at Su Fang in disbelief. What kind of divine ability was that? It could actually break through my supreme divine ability? Su Fang raised the corner of his mouth and said in disdain, Why would I need a powerful divine ability to deal with you? What I used just now was merely the art of driving mountain that all outer sect disciples of the Kuan Su divine sect can use. It was you who was too weak Not my divine ability that was too powerful. Ji Xingyu was a proud and arrogant person. When had he ever been ridiculed like this? He couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. Ji Ong said coldly, "It was indeed the art of driving mountain. To be able to use the art of driving mountain to the extreme, combined with the prehistoric inflammation, it has such power. Mo Fenghua, you have truly surprised me. I'll ask you again. Returning Ji people, if I give you an identity and status that matches your cultivation talent, are you willing?" Su Fong said decisively, "Sorry, I'm not interested in Ji people." "Then it's truly a pity." Ji Ong shook his head and sighed, looking very regretful. In the next moment, a cold light flashed through Ji Ang's deep eyes. The life-shrinking technique and heaven's expansion mystic solution caused Su Fong to feel a strong sense of danger. He didn't hesitate to activate the sky-piercing rainbow shuttle. However, it was too late. Facing Jiang, who had the strength of a great realm master, Su Fong had no room to react. Ji Ong quickly formed a dazzling hand seal. An aura of the great Tao of time quickly spread out. The power of time condensed into ethereal divine marks, interweaving into a formation. It covered an area of 30 meters and shackled Su Fong in the center. "Jiang, you went back on your word and attacked a true god junior." The three divine kings and Xianlingzi roared at the same time and charged towards Jiang, who knew that Jiang's figure would shatter under their attacks. Jiang and Ji Xing, you calmly walked out of the main hall. The three divine kings and Xianlingzi were stunned. Then, Xianlingzi burst out with another divine ability, shattering Jiang and Ji Xing's figures again. Jiang's cold laughter came from outside the main hall. "What you saw, including the voice you heard, was me from 10 breaths ago. There's a difference of 10 breaths between you and me. How can you do anything to me?" The time divine ability is so exquisite and powerful. Everyone in the main hall was shocked. "I only used the time divine ability to create a formation to shackle Mo Fenghua for a period of time. It won't harm his life, so I didn't go back on my promise. However, there's something special about my formation. It's called the Great Vicissitudes Formation. The flow of time inside the formation is a little slower than outside, but not by much. It's only 1,000 times slower than the outside world. With Mo Fenghua's current strength, he'll be able to walk out of the formation after 10,000 years. As for the time outside, it'll be 10 million years. When he comes out, the outside world will have changed. As for whether he'll be able to fulfill the blood oath, I can't guarantee." Ji Yang's cold voice with a hint of complacency came from outside the main hall. Then, Ji Xingyu's arrogant voice sounded. "A bastard dares to reject the good intentions of the Ji people. You don't know what's good for you." Xianlingzi let out a thunderous roar and rushed out of the main hall. How could he still see Ji Ong and his son? "Xianlingzi, I'm afraid things aren't looking good." Although the three divine kings weren't as strong as Ji Ong, they were still famous blacksmiths. After carefully observing the time divine formation for a while, their faces revealed a worried expression. Xianlingzi looked into the depths of the formation. Affected by the time divine ability, he could only see a chaotic space. He couldn't see Su Fong's shadow at all. Xianlingzi took out a supreme grade flying sword. After activating it, it shot into the formation. Layers of time divine ability continuously corroded the flying sword. This supreme grade flying sword flew less than 3 meters in the formation. The Xian Guang quickly dissipated and the heavenly mark collapsed. The body of the sword quickly became rusty and finally turned into a pile of ashes that scattered in the formation. Then, Xianlingzi transmitted his voice and primordial spirit's voice to the formation. Whether it was the voice or the primordial spirit's voice, they were eroded layer by the time divine ability. Before being transmitted to the formation, they disappeared. Xianlingzi was worried about Su Fong's safety. He peeled off a yang spirit and went straight for the formation. In the formation, the yang spirit rapidly aged and finally collapsed. Even the primordial spirit also collapsed. Any matter or power in the world couldn't resist the passage of time, divine ability. This was the terror of the great Tao of time. Master Kuan Su said in shock, "What a terrifying great vicissitudes formation. Even if the realm lord of the star below divine realm personally came, it would be difficult to break the formation." The three divine kings said in a deep voice, "Jiang clearly wants Mo Fenghua to be trapped in the formation and miss the life and death battle with Fan Su. Mo Fenghua will suffer the backlash of the blood oath battle contract and die in the formation. Jiang, I, Mo Xianling, am absolutely irreconcilable with you." Xianlingzi roared in anger and despair. The three divine kings hesitated for a moment, then transmitted their primordial spirit to Xianlingzi. Such a large formation, other than experts who are proficient in the great Tao of time, no one can break it. Fellow Xianling, don't lose your sense of propriety. I try to contact Grandmaster. It's not that there's no hope of rescuing Mo Fenghua. Three great masters, Grandmaster? Xianlingzi was startled and then shocked. The three divine kings were already the #1 artificers in the star below divine realm. What kind of terrifying existence was his grandmaster? Xianlingzi was immediately surprised and happy, hope igniting in his heart. Who knew that the three divine kings would continue? Grandmaster has never dabbled in the great Tao of time, and he's currently in a critical moment of seclusion. I don't dare to say whether we can contact him or rescue Mo Fenghua. Xianlingzi looked at the formation and began to worry again. Inside the Great Vicissitudes formation, Su Fong activated the Great Perfection stage ability, and at the same time used the Heaven Prying Eye. He carefully observed the formation, and his expression became incomparably solemn. This formation was different from other ordinary formations. Even with the Yellow Spring Blood Seas ability, it was difficult to escape the terrifying power of time. Using brute force to break the formation obviously wouldn't work. With Su Fong's current true God Realm cultivation, it was almost impossible to use brute force to break a formation created by an expert equivalent to a great realm master. Su Fong settled down for a moment, and his heart quickly calmed down from the initial panic. It's not that there's no way. I can join forces with senior sister Shu Wanjin to activate the Origin Sacred Mirror, and we should be able to destroy this formation. However, this way, the secret of the Origin Sacred Mirror will definitely be lost. Also, there's another way. Chapter 1920. G People's Grand Tao of Time was stolen from Shu Yunkong's master's family. I happen to have master's understanding of the Grand Tao of Time and his family's secret manual. I can cultivate and break the array at the same time and improve my understanding of the Grand Tao of Time in the process. It's definitely more effective than cultivating in seclusion. I seem to be trapped this time, but in fact, Ji Ong has created a great opportunity for me to train. As for the blood oath with Fan Su, Su Fong smiled proudly. If he couldn't get out of the array on the day of the battle, Su Fong definitely wouldn't have to worry about the backlash of the blood oath. He had the life shrinking technique, a supreme divine power of fate. At most, he could erase the power of the blood oath from the karma of fate. With my current strength, I can easily trample Fan Su under my feet. He's not important to me at all. It doesn't matter if he lives a few more years. The most important thing is the Divine Prince competition. How long has it been since I became a cultivator to reach my current height? I don't believe that I can't break the array before the Divine Prince competition. Destroying was always much easier than creating. It was the same for breaking arrays. Su Fong had the heavenly divination solution, a supreme divine power that could spy on the secrets of heaven and earth. He also had the supreme luck brought by the purple Chi Dharma spirit, the ability to understand the grand Tao and the all-encompassing chaotic divine personality. With all these abilities and divine powers, even if he couldn't cultivate the grand Tao of time to the extreme before the Divine Prince competition, he should still be very confident in breaking the array. After making the decision, Su Fong was relieved. He took out the time cave abode and entered it. The flow of time inside the time cave abode was faster than outside, but the power of time released by Ji Ang's vicissitudes grand array was the opposite. The power of time inside the time cave abode couldn't offset the power of the array, but it could still be of some use. Su Fong formed a hand seal to break his body and cast the Acheron blood sea, forming many blood clones. He separated his primordial spirit consciousness and used them to cultivate various cultivation arts, divine powers, or merge with divine artifacts, mainly the sky-breaking rainbow shuttle. At the same time, Su Fong formed his original body in the blood sea and focused on cultivating the grand Tao of time. With a thought, 2 golden jade slips appeared in front of the main body. These 2 jade slips were the 2 that his master, Shu Yunkong, had given to Su Fong before he sealed himself. One of them stored Shu Yunkong's comprehension of the great Tao of time, while the other contained the inheritance of Shu Yunkong's family. Master, there will be a day when I will cultivate the great Tao of time to the extreme and possess the strength of a great world's world lord. Then, I will find a way to help you recover. If that's not enough, I will create a reincarnation cycle in my inner world. Even if I have to go against the heavens, I will save you. Su Fong thought of Shu Yunkong, who was sealed in his bodily world. He then thought of Yao, he old immortal. His heart was filled with sorrow, but at the same time, he was filled with a firm conviction. Then, Su Fong separated his consciousness and sank it into the 2 jade slips. He immersed himself within and continued to cultivate and comprehend. Time flew. Unknowingly, more than 300 years had passed in the outside world. Xian Lingzi, the 3 divine kings, Ling Xiangmei, Count Chong, and the others had also spent more than 300 years in anxiety and worry. Outside the main hall, 2 figures had appeared out of nowhere. They were clearly standing there, but no one inside or outside the hall had noticed their presence. One of them was a middle-aged man with an elegant face. He was the master of the 3 divine kings, Mo Tiangong. At this moment, Mo Tiangong's aura had become even more illusory. His every move was in harmony with the heavens and the earth. It was obvious that he had reached a new height. The other person was an old man with a white beard. He wore a simple linen, short-sleeved shirt with his trousers and sleeves rolled up. He looked like an old farmer. Blacksmith Mo, you came all the way here just to save a little guy in the true God realm? Do you think that I have too much free time, or are you trying to fool me? The old farmer's eyes flashed with an illusory, divine light. What appeared in his eyes was the scene of Su Fong cultivating in the cavern of time. Ji Eng's great vicissitudes formation and Su Fong's cavern of time could not block his gaze. What kind of person was Mo Tiangong? This old man actually called Mo Tiangong Blacksmith Mo. It could be seen that this person was at least as powerful as Mo Tiangong. Farmer, don't underestimate this little guy. He is not an ordinary person. He is not inferior to the few seedlings you have your eyes on. And he is a cultivator who ascended from a macro world. He has cultivated a lot of things. He is somewhat famous. However, what right does he have to be mentioned in the same breath as the seedlings I have my eyes on? The weakest seedlings I have my eyes on is the master of a small world. Who does this true God realm kid think he is? The old man who Mo Tiangong called Farmer had actually exposed Su Fong's background. However, he still snorted at Su Fong. I didn't expect that a farmer like you would have a time when you were wrong. Mo Tiangong laughed. Do you still remember the heavenly wave vision that appeared not long ago? You are saying that the heavenly wave vision is related to this little guy. The old man's eyes changed slightly. Then a bright light flashed in his eyes. He carefully sized up Su Fong. His eyes gradually brightened. Interesting. He is indeed a little interesting. This little guy has cultivated an inner world. Moreover, he has something that even I can't see through. He can even attract the heavenly wave vision. Extraordinary, very extraordinary. Unfortunately, he is too weak. Only a little interesting. Farmer, not only is your eyesight bad, you are simply blind. Mo Tiangong inexplicably snorted. Then, he continued, I was fortunate enough to have a breakthrough because of his enlightenment. This little guy's level in the way of weapon refining is so high that even I have to admire him. Farmer, if such a person can't even enter your eyes, then you might as well gouge your eyeballs out. There is such a thing? The old man was very shocked. He once again looked at Su Fong. If that is the case, then treat this little guy as a seedling candidate. Watch how he performs in the future. Let's save him first. The old man nodded and was about to enter the formation to save Su Fong. Right at this moment, Su Fong's original body suddenly flew out of the time and space cavern. Then, he raised his head and looked outside the formation. His eyes revealed a puzzled look. The old man outside the palace was shocked. He can actually sense my existence. A true immortal realm expert actually has such ability. This is simply heaven-defying. Mo Tiangong also revealed a look of surprise. It was too unbelievable. Subsequently, Su Fong suddenly formed hand seals. Numerous hand seals that dazzled the eyes emitted a mysterious aura of time. The vicissitudes grand formation that Ji Ong had personally created actually shook, and at least over 100 seals that contained the laws of the Grand Tao of time shattered. The divine power released by the formation also weakened. Although it was somewhat insignificant, it was still weakened. My comprehension is not bad, but it is far from enough to break the formation. Su Fong muttered to himself for a while. Then, he returned to the time and space cavern. Monster, this kid is simply a monster. The old man and Mo Tiangong looked at each other. Their eyes were bright, as if they had discovered a peerless treasure. The old man also gave up on the idea of entering the formation to save Su Fong. Mo Tiangong said, "Let him cultivate in the formation. This great vicissitudes formation is a shackle for him, but it is also an opportunity. However, he has a blood oath with that Sanskrit kid. There is not much time left. We have to find a way to solve it for him. He's just a kid from a side branch of Sanskrit. Just greet the old ghost from the main branch of Sanskrit," the old man said indifferently. Then, the two sat down outside the palace and watched Su Fong's every move. Cloudy Realm, on a floating mountain in the divine capital. Inside the cavern, Fan Su and Xia Yunji were having sex. Suddenly, Fan Su panted like a wild beast and fell from the peak of bliss. Fan Su sat up and put on a Taoist robe with a gloomy face. "Brother Su, are you thinking about that trash again?" Xia Yunji leaned over and asked with concern. Then, she sneered and her eyes were full of resentment and joy. "That trash is shackled by Lord Ji Ang's great vicissitudes formation. He won't be able to walk out of the formation without tens of millions of years. It wouldn't be long before he died from the backlash of the blood oath because he couldn't fulfill it. Brother Su, why are you worrying about a dead person?" Fan Su said hatefully, "Not long ago, Mo Fenghua was kneeling at my feet and licking my shoes. Now I have no choice but to use this method to escape the blood oath. To me, this is tantamount to a great humiliation. How can I let go of this anger in my heart?" Xia Yunji smiled and said, "In short, that trash is dead, but Brother Su is alive and well." Fan Su nodded and said, "Yes, I'm still alive. As long as I'm alive, there are endless possibilities. But that trash turned into a pile of dust." Fan Su, a nascent spirit, suddenly came through the void and condensed into a lifelike shadow in the cave. It was Sanskrit's Elderine. "Elder!" Fan Su quickly stood up and bowed to Elderine. Xia Yunji panicked and put on a Taoist robe to cover her body. The shadow of Elder Yin's primordial spirit said majestically, "Fan Su, you should end your own life." Boom! Fan Su's head buzzed. He looked at Elder Yin in disbelief. "Elder, what do you mean by this?" Elder Yin said coldly, "The blood oath between you and Mo Fenghua states that if you fight, you won't be able to defeat him. If you don't fight, you'll be ridiculed. No matter what the result is, it will damage Sanskrit's reputation. Therefore, the clan's upper echelons have decided to let you kill yourself immediately to protect our clan's reputation." Fan Su said angrily, "Mo Fenghua will die without a doubt. Why should I fight him?" "It's because Mo Fenghua won't die that you must die." Chapter 1921. That trash didn't die? Lord Jiang personally created the Great Vicissitudes Formation. How could he not die? Who dared to offend Lord Jiang and break the formation to save him? How could he not die? Fan Su exclaimed in disbelief. A to read book, 2 square root 3 cent of the silver old man said coldly. I have no right to know why Mo Fenghua didn't die. I'm here to deliver the Sanskrit's higher-ups' order for you to end your own life. I don't know anything else. The higher-ups didn't ask the main branch's experts or Lord Jiang to save me. Do they dare to go against the will of the main branch's experts? Fan Su roared unwillingly. The silver old man said, to save you and protect our clan's face, the Sanskrit's higher-ups of the cloudy divine realm asked the main branch's experts to help. This time, it wasn't the cloudy divine realm's higher-ups who ordered you to end your own life, but the main branch's higher-ups. No one could change that. After a pause, the silver old man sighed. Fan Su, you still don't understand. Behind Mo Fenghua is a powerful existence that even the main branch's higher-ups have to be wary of. That's why they had to sacrifice you. How is that possible? Fan Su's body trembled, and his face turned pale as he collapsed to the ground. Xia Yunji was dumbfounded, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Mo Fenghua. His grandfather was Xianlingzi, but he was only the head of Kuan Su divine sect's Xianling Dao Rite. He was a respectable figure in Kuan Su divine sect, but compared to a colossus like Sanskrit, he was just an ant-like existence. His father, Mo Shangtsong, was extremely talented, but he died prematurely and even offended the ancient Ji people. The Ji people couldn't possibly stand up for a bastard like Mo Fenghua. Could it be the 3 divine kings? The 3 divine kings were the #1 artificers in the Star Billow divine realm, but their influence was limited to the Star Billow divine realm. They definitely couldn't influence the higher-ups of Sanskrit's main branch. For a moment, Xia Yunji's mind was in chaos, and her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Shock, disbelief, and intense regret. If she knew this was going to happen, why would she abandon Mo Fenghua and cling to Fan? Fan Su, you died for Sanskrit's reputation, so Sanskrit won't treat you unfairly. After you die, Sanskrit will give you a grand funeral. When you die, as for your woman, since you like her, then let her accompany you in death. Elder Yin's voice was calm, but it was so cold. Xia Yunji collapsed to the ground, her face full of despair and unwillingness. Kuan Su divine sect. In the main hall at the top of the giant mountain, Xianlingzi, the 3 divine lords, Kuan Su Shangren, and the others were waiting outside the vicissitude's great expansion formation. The day of the blood oath between Mo Fenghua and Fan Su was about to arrive. However, Su Fong still did not make any movements in the array formation. If he did not fulfill the agreement, he would suffer the backlash of the blood oath and die without a doubt. The 3 Fire Divine Lord tried to contact Mo Tiangong, but there was no news. How could they not be worried? At this time, Xianlingzi's head had turned completely gray. He was lifeless, like a dying man. Suddenly, Ling Xiangmei rushed into the hall. Her face was filled with shock and ecstasy. Master Kuan Su asks in a deep voice, Elder Ling, what happened? Ling Xiangmei laughed. Good news, very good news. Everyone's attention was attracted. Then, they were shocked by the news Ling Xiangmei brought. The turbid cloud realm suddenly announced that Fan Su knew that he was no match for Mo Fenghua because she was unable to fulfill the blood oath. For the sake of the Brahma race's reputation, he had committed suicide several days ago. Xia Yunji also died for Fan Su. Everyone was ecstatic. Xianlingzi was so excited that he fainted. Since Fan Su died, the blood oath was canceled. Su Fong wouldn't be affected by the blood oath. Even if he stayed in the formation for millions of years, he would be safe. The only regret was that Su Fong wouldn't be able to participate in the Kimiko Hoshino tournament 80,000 years later. He would miss this opportunity to soar. However, Su Fong was lucky to be able to keep his life. Xianlingzi didn't ask for much. The 3 Fire Divine Lord guessed that it must have been Grandmaster Mo Tiangong who pressured Fan Su in secret. This forced Fan Su to kill himself and help Mo Fenghua resolve a life and death crisis. When Kuan Su Master learned of Xia Yunji's death, he couldn't help but sigh helplessly. At the same time, he felt regret in his heart. If he hadn't allowed Xia Yunji to do whatever she wanted, how could she have lost her life? After all, Kuan Su Shangren was the master of a realm. He naturally understood that Fan Su would not die for the sake of protecting the Brahma clan's reputation. Instead, he was forced to die by the powerful existence behind Su Fong. With such a powerful background, if his granddaughter and Su Fong became Dao companions, wouldn't Kuan Su's status also rise? Outside the hall, Mo Tiangong and an old farmer sat cross-legged in the void. They merged with heaven and earth. No one could detect their existence. The old man said, "Blacksmith, that kid needs at least millions of years to get out of the formation. It's useless for us to stay here. Let's go back." Mo Tiangong said slowly, "Millions of years? Farmer, why don't we make a bet? If he can't get out of the vicissitudes formation in 1,000,000 years, I'll refine it for you for 1,000,000 years. If he comes out, you give me the dragon skin. How about it? You want this old man's dragon skin?" The old man immediately became alert. "That piece of dragon skin of mine is not the skin of an ordinary divine dragon. It is the skin shed by the first divine dragon that was born in the chaos at the beginning of the universe. It is also the ancestral dragon of all divine dragons. It is the skin shed during its first metamorphosis. It is one of a kind in the universe. If you want this supreme treasure, it won't be so easy." The old man revealed a complacent expression. Then the old man said, "However, seeing that our relationship is not bad, this old man will give you a chance. If this kid can get out of the formation in 1,000,000 years, the ancestor dragon skin is yours. Otherwise, you'll refine 10 fortune divine artifacts for this old man." 10 fortune divine artifacts? Farmer, you're too black-hearted. Mo Tiangong snorted coldly. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's a deal." Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years had passed. To a peerless expert like Mo Tiangong, 10,000 years was merely the time of a nap. The two of them sat cross-legged in the void without even moving their postures. Inside the vicissitudes formation, the flow of time was 1,000 times slower than outside. 10,000 years was only 10 years inside the formation. Su Fong had only spent a little more than 100 years inside the time cave dwelling. During this period of time, Su Fong exited the cave abode of time 3 times. Every time he exited, he would use the great Tao of time he comprehended to break the formation. The runes of the formation were constantly broken. However, he was still far from breaking the formation. On this day, Su Fong suddenly flew out from the time cave dwelling. His body spewed out a burst of tribulation chi that rapidly turned into tribulation fire. Inside the time cave dwelling, Su Fong continuously swallowed medicinal pills while cultivating the time Grand Tao. At the same time, he also cultivated with the fire essence extracted from the World Lord's prehistoric inflammation. Unexpectedly, he broke through again, advancing to a new level. The tribulation fire and 9 Yang divine fire continued to burn for more than a month. Su Fong's aura rose from the 8th layer to the 9th layer. The heavenly marks inside and outside his body also turned into 9. 9th layer, true God realm. The two peerless experts outside the hall were surprised. Then, the old farmer chuckled and said, "This kid's improvement speed is not slow. However, advancing to a new level won't help him much in breaking the formation. Blacksmith Mo, you've lost for sure this time." Mo Tiangong smiled confidently. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, another 30,000 years had passed. Su Fong had spent more than 300 years in the time cave dwelling. After flying out of the time cave dwelling once again, Su Fong suddenly formed a seal. A burst of time Grand Tao aura lingered around him. His entire body emitted a mysterious aura. Time flies like an arrow. Sun and moon fly like a shuttle. Arrow of time. Su Fong roared angrily. The power of time transformed into a black and white yin and yang chi that condensed into a 3 feet long arrow. It dragged a tail of light that transformed from a xianguang. With a shocking momentum of time annihilation, it shot towards the formation. Chi chi chi. This black and white arrow landed on the Great Vicissitudes formation. As the black and white chi swam and changed, a mysterious and terrifying power of time annihilation burst out. The formation shattered layer by layer. Su Fong took the opportunity to take 3 steps forward. After a distance of nearly 10 feet, the power of the black and white arrow was exhausted. Su Fong then stopped. The great vicissitudes formation that Ji Ong had created only covered an area of 10 feet. From the center of the formation to the periphery of the formation, Su Fong was only 15 feet away. At this moment, Su Fong's sudden burst of power had covered a distance of 10 feet. This was equivalent to covering 1/5 of the distance. It was truly astonishing. What Su Fong had used was the supreme power of time from the Shu Yunkong's family inheritance, the Arrow of Time. Not only could the Arrow of Time release the power of time annihilation and shatter time, but if cultivated to the extreme, it could also release a heaven-defying power that could increase or reverse time. However, using the Arrow of Time was the same as using the life-shrinking technique. It also had a price that deities could not bear. It consumed a large amount of life force. However, the difference was that the life-shrinking technique would cause the user to rapidly age. Their life force would be drained, and the cultivator's most precious life force would be damaged. On the other hand, using the Arrow of Time was the exact opposite. It would cause the cultivator's life force to reverse. They would rapidly turn from an adult into a youth, a child, or even an infant. Although they would seem younger, they would also lose life force. It was very difficult to make up for it. Even their cultivation level would decline along with it. After using the Arrow of Time for the first time, Su Fong rapidly turned into a 12 or 13-year-old child at a speed visible to the naked eye. His chi also weakened to the level of a first heaven true god. He almost fell to the mortal evolution state. Chapter 1922. Arrow of Time. Su Fong was overjoyed to have mastered another supreme ability, and it was also a supreme ability of the great Tao of Time. His eyes flashed with joy and excitement. 3 is not equal to 8. 3 is not equal to 8. 3 is not equal to reading. 3 is not equal to books. Oh, I still have to thank Jiang properly. If it weren't for him creating this formation of time, how could I have comprehended the great Tao of Time so much in such a short amount of time and grasp a supreme ability like the Arrow of Time? Thinking of Jiang, Su Fong's eyes flashed with a cold and sharp light. I've been trapped in the formation of time, and I don't know how much time has passed outside. Su Fong was in the formation. Although he didn't know the difference between the flow of time in the formation and the outside world, he could still sense the great difference between the inside and outside of the formation. Su Fong didn't have to worry about the blood oath between him and Fan Su. Of course, he didn't know that Fan Su had been forced to end his own life, and he didn't use the life-shrinking technique to erase the blood oath. Instead, he sensed that the binding force of the blood oath had imperceptibly disappeared. He didn't care much about the blood oath in the first place, and now he was even more relieved. I'll recover first, and then break out of the formation as quickly as possible. I can't miss the Kimiko Hoshino competition. Su Fong inspected his body and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Not only did he look like he was 12 or 13 years old, even his cultivation base had declined. The feeling of being a weakling made Su Fong feel powerless. Returning to the cavern of time, he immediately swallowed pills and spiritual objects, mainly pills and spiritual objects to replenish his blood qi, to recover the life force he had consumed. Su Fong used the Arrow of Time and covered 1/5 of the distance in the formation. Mo Tiangong and the farmer-like old man were both surprised and shocked. Mo Tiangong said in shock, "Good boy, you have such astonishing comprehension ability, and you also happen to have a method to cultivate the great Tao of Time. Your talent is high, and your luck is strong. Even I can't help but be a little jealous." The old man looked even more shocked than Mo Tiangong. The importance of Su Fong in his heart immediately rose to a whole new level. Mo Tiangong stretched out his hand towards the old man and chuckled proudly. "Farmer, why haven't you brought me the ancestral dragon skin?" The old man was startled, and immediately revealed a pained expression. He shouted in dissatisfaction, "Blacksmith Mo!" As he walked out of the array, Mo Tiangong smiled and said, "Old thing, Mo Fenghua has grasped such an astonishing time divine art, and she still needs 1,000,000 years to walk out of the formation? If you want to go back on your word, just say it. I guarantee that the entire universe will know of your character." The old man was still as stubborn as ever as he said, "How can a mere true deity cast the great Tao of time? This time, he would need at least 10,000 years to recover, and he might not be able to recover completely. 10,000 years in the array. Excluding the effect of that time artifact, at least 1,000,000 years would have passed outside." Before he could finish, the divine light penetrated the time, divine power of the array, and the barrier of the cavern of time. It saw the flames of life of Su Fong's yellow spring blood sea that were quickly ignited. His voice suddenly stopped. With Su Fong's current recovery speed, he would be able to recover to his peak state in less than 100 years. Why would he need 10,000 years? This little monster, you made me lose so badly. If I had known, I would have let the backlash of the blood oath kill you. Old thing, I'll give you the ancestral dragon skin. Take it and use it as a burial cloth. The old man was furious. He gritted his teeth, but in the end, he still took out a roll of dragon skin that emitted an astonishing aura of life and directly rolled it towards Mo Tiangong. Then, he turned his head to the side, as if he couldn't bear to look anymore. Mo Tiangong laughed heartily. He grabbed the dragon skin and clicked his tongue in amazement. The old man was so angry that his whole body trembled. Only then did Mo Tiangong put away the dragon skin with satisfaction. The old man was unwilling to give up. His eyes flashed with a touch of determination. He gritted his teeth and said to Mo Tiangong, "Blacksmith, if you have the guts, let's make another bet." Mo Tiangong laughed and said, "Old thing, what else do you have that can tempt me?" The old man flipped his right hand, and a meteorite-like object appeared in his palm. This meteor was dark and only the size of a fist, yet it emitted a mysterious, vast, and ancient shocking aura. When one looked carefully, it was covered in numerous mysterious and ancient marks of the heavens, and they seemed to have been formed naturally. Primal chaos, mother gold. Old thing, you actually have such a precious treasure in your hands? Mo Tiangong's expression changed in an instant. His whole body trembled, and he completely lost his usual calm and refined demeanor. Obviously, he was shocked and excited by this meteorite. The so-called primal gold essence was a kind of metal that condensed from the chaos when heaven and earth were created. It was the #1 treasure for refining artifacts. To an artificer like Mo Tiangong, it naturally had a fatal attraction. The old man said complacently, "This old man has many treasures in his hands. How can you guess what they are? How about it? Are you interested in making another bet? If you have the ability, win this old man's primal gold essence as well?" Mo Tiangong's eyes shone brightly. "What kind of bet?" The old man said, "Let's bet on the time this kid takes to walk out of the formation. As long as he can walk out of the formation before the Kamiko Hoshino Summit competition starts, this primal gold essence will be yours. If he can't walk out of the formation, you have to obediently return the ancestral dragon skin to this old man, and then refine 10 fortune divine artifacts for this old man. How about it? Old thing, do you think I'm an idiot? There are still more than 40,000 years until the Godchild Summit competition in the Star Billow Divine Realm. That kid is in the Great Vicissitudes formation, and even if he stays in the time cave, it will only be a mere 400 years. Moreover, this formation will become harder to break as it progresses, and the time it takes to break it will multiply. 400 years. No matter how heaven-defying a true God realm true God is, how can he break a great realm master's time formation? How can this old man fall for your evil tricks? Mo Tiangong shook his head and sneered, unwilling to be fooled. However, looking at the treasure in the old man's hand, Mo Tiangong's heart itched again. The temptation of the primal gold essence was just too great for him. The old man put away the primal gold essence. This old man will add another 100 fortune divine pills. If you still don't want to bet, then forget it. Old thing, you win. I'll bet with you. Mo Tiangong completely lost his refined demeanor, and his face was filled with determination. It's a deal. Ha ha ha. Blacksmith, you've lost for sure this time. You'd better obediently return the ancestral dragon's skin to this old man, and then work as a coolie to refine equipment for this old man. The old man thought that he had succeeded and was very pleased. Mo Tiangong looked at the formation and began to worry about his gains and losses. Inside the time cavern, Su Fong crazily swallowed pills and spiritual items. The flames of life in the Yellow Spring's blood sea gradually became more vigorous and finally burned fiercely. 70 to 80 years passed in the time cavern, and a physical body condensed from the blood water. Su Fong had already recovered to his peak state, and his appearance was still 17 or 18 years old. His cultivation had also recovered to the ninth heaven of true God realm. Su Fong muttered to himself, "The price of using the time divine ability is too great. Moreover, I'm trapped here, and the pills and spiritual items on me will be exhausted in a long time. The Kamiko Hoshino competition is approaching, and I have to get out of the formation as soon as possible." After a moment of silence, then, Su Fong's eyes flashed with a hale and hearty light. He reached out and grabbed, and over 100 mid-grade divine essence pills appeared in front of him. A surge of 9 yang divine fire swept out from the blood water and wrapped around the pills. After a series of huff and puff, the pills were refined. The refined pills were swept into the blood water by the 9 yang divine fire and quickly merged with the blood water. After the majestic medicinal power was absorbed by the blood water, it caused Su Fong's cultivation to rise rapidly. At the same time, Su Fong continuously merged with the remaining prehistoric spirit flames and also stripped the flame essence of the prehistoric inflammation from the mirror. However, he was not cultivating the 9 yang 9 transformations, nor was he cultivating the fire cloud emperor physique. Instead, he was rushing to the peak of the ninth heaven of true God realm. What is this kid doing? Even if he reaches the peak of the heavenly God realm now, what's the benefit? Su Fong's actions caused Mo Tiangong and the old farmer to be extremely surprised. They did not know what he was doing. 300 years passed in the Cavern of Time. After consuming a large amount of pills and spiritual items, especially the prehistoric spirit flames and the flame essence of the prehistoric inflammation, Su Fong raised his cultivation to the peak of the ninth heaven in 300 years. However, the consumption was also incomparably shocking. Before this, in order to prepare for the Kamiko Hoshino competition, Su Fong prepared a large amount of pills and spiritual items. At this time, almost all of them were used up. The prehistoric spirit flames were also used up, and he could no longer strip the flame essence of the prehistoric inflammation in a short period of time. Otherwise, it would harm its source. During this time, Su Fong also continued to comprehend the great Tao of time. Although he did not comprehend a new ability, the power of the arrow of time increased by a lot. In 300 years, Su Fong advanced another 20 feet in the formation and was only 10 feet away from walking out of the formation. However, the further he advanced, the more difficult it was to break through the vicissitudes formation. Every step forward became extremely difficult. Su Fong estimated that if he used the arrow of time to break through the last 10 feet of the formation, it would be impossible without at least 500 years. This 500 years, of course, referred to the 500 years in the formation. Ha! Blacksmith, why don't you obediently hand over the ancestral dragon's skin to this old man? This kid is not bad. He really is a good seedling. When he comes out, this old man will reward him well. Seeing that it was impossible for Su Fong to walk out of the formation before the Divine Sun competition, the old farmer was very pleased. He stretched out his hand and asked Mo Tiangong for the ancestral dragon's skin. This kid, what is he doing? Mo Tiangong's elegant face did not look so good, but he was unwilling to return the ancestral dragon's skin to the old man. There was less than 100 years until the Kamiko Hoshino competition. The 100 participating disciples of the Kuan-Su celestial sect had already left the Kuan-Su celestial realm and headed to the star below celestial realm. At the same time, Master Kuan-Su and the higher-ups of the celestial sect had also brought a large group of disciples along to cheer for the participating disciples. In the main hall, only Xianlingzi, Ling Xiangmei, Uncle Chong, and a few elders of the Xianling dojo were left. Chapter 1923. The upper echelons of Xianling dojo also sighed with regret. 8 Red Book 230. If not for being trapped in the Great Vicissitudes formation, Su Fong would definitely be able to blossom with unparalleled brilliance in this Kamiko Hoshino competition and become famous in the star below divine realm, even if he could not become Kamiko Hoshino. In this way, Xianlingzi and Xianling Dojo's status in Kuan-Su divine sect would naturally rise along with the tide. Now that Su Fong was trapped in the Great Vicissitudes formation, all hope was gone. As long as Feng Hua is safe, I'm satisfied. Everything else doesn't matter. Xianlingzi said, looking much older, but his spirit was still hale and hearty. There is only one Kamiko Hoshino competition. If he missed this opportunity, there would not be another in the future. However, to Xianlingzi, as long as his precious grandson was still alive, he was already satisfied. Outside the hall, Mo Tiangong had no choice but to prepare to admit defeat and return the ancestral dragon skin to the old man. That old farmer-like old man smiled until his old face was like a blooming chrysanthemum, making Mo Tiangong gnash his teeth. It was also at this time, Su Fong, who was in the time and space abode, suddenly released his power. An aura of nothingness spread between heaven and earth. The surrounding Great Vicissitudes formation also found it difficult to block this aura. From the depths of the firmament, the sound of thunder faintly came. A terrifying heavenly Tao aura descended on the peak of Kuan-Su divine sect. Mo Tiangong was stunned and said in surprise, "This kid actually plans to transcend tribulation in the formation and ascend to the celestial god realm." The old man snorted disdainfully. "Just the celestial god realm? What's there to make a fuss about? Blacksmith, stop dawdling and quickly bring the ancestral dragon skin to this old man." But Mo Tiangong was in high spirits. "I understand. This kid is actually so smart to actually think of such a way to break the formation." The old man was stunned and puzzled, then came to a realization. This kid actually plans to borrow the primal chaos divine realm to attack the formation. Bastard. This kid is really a bastard. If he really succeeds, wouldn't I lose another piece of primal chaos mother of gold? When a deity broke through a major realm, the primal chaos deity tribulation would descend. The divine tribulation of primal chaos was formed by the power of the heavenly Tao. No matter how powerful the Great Vicissitudes formation that Ji-On created was, it was impossible for it to block the power of the heavenly Tao. Even if it wasn't destroyed by the divine tribulation, it would still lose more than half of its power. Mo Tiangong took back the ancestral dragon's pelt that he was about to give away and laughed. "Farmer, who knows? This brat might really walk out of the array formation before the Godchild tournament. You better prepare the primal chaos golden essence and creation pill. Blacksmith Mo, don't be too happy too early." How powerful can the primal chaos divine tribulation be when a true god transforms into a heavenly god? When ordinary gods transcend the heaven god tribulation, they will be able to summon a divine tribulation with a radius of half a mile. Even if this brat is extraordinary, it would already be quite extraordinary if he could summon a divine tribulation with a radius of 1 mile. How could he destroy the array formation created by the great world's realm master? This brat does have some tricks up his sleeve, but it's just some petty tricks. The old farmer showed disdain and poured a ladle of ice water on Mo Tiangong's head. Mo Tiangong could no longer laugh. The divine tribulation of a heavenly god poured out from the sky and descended on Kuan-Su's divine sect. The tribulation clouds rolled, and the area it covered was not 1 mile as the old man had guessed, but 10 miles. The smile on the old farmer's face froze in an instant. Mo Tiangong, on the other hand, laughed out loud. Chi, chi, chi. Terrifying lightning tore through the sky and descended. The powerful array formation of the palace at the peak of Kuan Su's divine sect instantly collapsed. However, the palace was turned into ashes under the terrifying power of the divine tribulation. Xian Lingzi and the others had long since the arrival of the god realm and left the palace in advance. The divine lightning crashed down and bombarded the great vicissitudes formation. The formation shattered layer by layer. The divine power of time, released by the formation, was forcibly shaken away in the end. The divine lightning's power was also weakened by more than half. When it landed on Su Fang's body, less than 1/3 of its power was left. Boom! Boom! Su Fang activated the fire cloud palm and clashed with the divine lightning, shattering the terrifying divine lightning. The power of the primal chaos divine realm was indeed terrifying. However, Su Fang's current true strength could even kill a peak 9th firmament heavenly god expert. Moreover, most of its power was weakened by the formation. Whether it was the terrifying tribulation power contained in the divine lightning or the pressure of heaven's might on the primordial spirit, it was difficult to cause too much of a threat to Su Fang. This state lasted for as long as half a year. Only then did the aura of the divine tribulation start to gradually weaken and finally disappear completely. The great vicissitudes formation that was bombarded into disorder by the divine tribulation actually did not completely collapse. It started to operate slowly again, shackling Su Fang within. However, the formation's power was less than 1/10 of before. An auspicious aura containing a trace of chaos aura descended on Su Fang's body, cleansing his body, divine apertures, and divine dwellings. A surge of promotion power swept through his entire body from inside out. The impurities in the placenta emerged from the depths of his body, emitting a foul stench. About 3 months later, everything calmed down. Following the calming of the promotion power and the disappearance of the auspicious light, Su Fang felt that the entire world had changed greatly in an instant. His perception of the world instantly became incomparably clear. The shackles of the world on the divine body and primordial spirit became more than 10 times weaker. A feeling of merging with heaven and earth arose spontaneously. This was the difference between the heavenly god realm and the true god realm. The true god realm mainly merged the physical body with the natural aura of heaven and earth to condense divine vitality. However, the heavenly god realm started to cultivate the laws of the great Tao and control the power of heaven and earth. When Su Fang was in the true god realm, although he could control the power of heaven and earth with the help of divine abilities, divine weapons, as well as his own chaos god lattice and primordial spirit, unleashing powerful divine abilities, his strength reaching an astonishing height that could kill heavenly gods. However, how could there be such a wonderful feeling as he could control nature as he wanted after advancing to the heavenly god realm? He sensed his body again. His divine dwellings became deeper and more vast. The star vortex in the center of the divine dwellings also became one size larger. The speed of its rotation was even more astonishing. Its ability to devour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and convert it into divine vitality had increased by at least 5 times. His divine apertures became more solid. His yang spirit was peeling off layer by layer, then transforming and fusing together again. An even stronger and more solid yang spirit was condensing again. Whether it was his divine dwellings, divine body, or yang spirit, there was a heavenly scar everywhere. It seemed to have decreased, but in reality, it had become more stable. The heavenly Tao aura contained in it had become more profound. First heavenly god realm. Right now, I'm facing an expert of Ling Xiangmei's level. Although I'm still a little powerless, I can still kill any deity within the heavenly deity realm, even if they have powerful divine abilities and divine artifacts, or even ordinary elders who have surpassed the heavenly deity realm. If I use the illusory fire cloud together with the prehistoric inflammation, it is not impossible to defeat a powerful elder like Ling Xiangmei. Su Fang's eyes flickered with a hale and hearty light, revealing a strong sense of confidence. This confidence came from his great strength and, at the same time, from his hard work. He had overcome all the difficulties and obstacles to finally reach his goal, and that kind of confidence in himself. His perfect vision swept across the broken formation. After advancing to the heavenly god realm, the power of the arrow of time has naturally increased by several times. It won't be long before I can completely break the formation and walk out of here. Su Fang then swallowed pills, preparing to stabilize his cultivation as soon as possible, and then break the formation in one fell swoop. Who would have thought that this breakthrough to the heavenly god realm would actually use up all the mid-grade divine essence pills, leaving behind some low-grade divine essence pills, and not many spiritual items left? If I use the heaven and earth spiritual chi to recover, it will take a lot of time, and I will definitely not be able to make it in time for the Kimiko Hoshino contest. What should I do? Su Fang was completely dumbfounded. At this moment, Mo Tiangong's primordial spirit voice transmitted over, "Kid, I will lend you a hand, and this supreme peak grade pill is for you. I won't give you the pill, but if you can't walk out before the Divine Sun contest, you'll have to give me 10,000 supreme peak grade pills." Immediately after, a Xianguang enveloped a pill, passing through the formation. The Great Vicissitudes formation created by Ji Ong was incomparably powerful. Even the ethereal primordial spirit couldn't pass through the formation, but Mo Tiangong was able to send the pills in. It was clear how extraordinary his strength was. Mo Tiangong? When did he come to the Kuan Su divine sect? Su Fang was very surprised, but he did not think too much about it, and hurriedly entered the time cave. If he really could not walk out before the Divine Sun contest, Mo Tiangong would have to give him 10,000 supreme peak grade pills. Even if he was killed, he would not be able to take out so many pills. This Mo Tiangong is really ungrateful. I have enlightened him before, but he doesn't know how to repay me and even threaten me. Su Fang was very dissatisfied with Mo Tiangong. How could he know that two peerless giants had placed a heavy bet on him? If he lost, not only would Mo Tiangong have to give away the treasures in his hands, but he would also have to refine 10 fortune divine artifacts. Those were creation divine artifacts that they were talking about. Even though they were created by artificers and were not born from nature, the value of 10 creation divine artifacts was so high that even if the entire star region where the Star Billow divine realm was located was sold, it would not be worth that much. Mo Tiangong was like a red-eyed gambler at this moment. How could he still remember the kindness of enlightening him? With Su Fang's current cultivation, it was difficult for him to swallow the supreme peak grade pills. He separated about 1/10 of the pills from them, and then merged them with spiritual water, turning them into spiritual liquid. After turning them into the yellow spring blood sea, a dozen drops of spiritual liquid fell into the blood water. How terrifying was the medicinal power of a supreme peak grade pill. Just a dozen drops of spiritual liquid were enough to replenish Su Fang's almost depleted energy after his breakthrough at a crazy speed. However, Su Fang's divine body and divine dwelling were 10 times more vast than ordinary gods, so it was naturally more difficult for him to recover. Even with the supreme peak grade pills and the devouring power of the yellow spring blood sea, he could not stabilize his state in a short time. Outside the formation, time passed day by day. Even if Su Fang appeared now, it would be impossible for him to break the formation in the remaining time. The old farmer was very pleased, and he laughed loudly at Mo Tiangong. "Blacksmith Mo, hurry up and give it to me." Who knew that at this moment? Chapter 1924. At the last moment, Su Fang used the sky-breaking rainbow shuttle to tyrannically charge out of the restraints of the Great Vicissitudes formation. Ji Ong personally created the formation. Although it was incomparably powerful, forcefully charging out of the formation would cause one to be eroded by the power of time. However, at this time, More than half of the formation had been destroyed by the divine tribulation. The distance was so short, and the sky-breaking rainbow shuttle's power was astonishing. Although Su Fong charged out of the formation, he still successfully charged out. The golden rainbow soared into the sky and suddenly stopped 3,000 feet in the air. Su Fong's figure appeared. I finally charged out of this damn time formation. Su Fong's eyes were filled with lingering fear. At the same time, he was also incomparably excited. This time, being trapped in the formation, he didn't know how many years had passed in the outside world. However, his gains were also very shocking. From the eighth firmament of true God to the heavenly God realm in one go, and even grasped a powerful great Tao of time ability, the Arrow of Time. His gains could not be said to be small. Feng Hua, Xian Lingzi, the three divine kings, and the others flew over. Each and every one of them had looks of disbelief and wild joy. At the peak of Kuan Su Divine Sect's giant mountain, the two peerless giants were first surprised, but soon after, their expressions were completely different. Mo Tiangong was naturally wild with joy. He didn't need to hand over the ancestral dragon's hide that he obtained. There were also 100 creation saint pills and a piece of primal chaos gold. These were all rare treasures in the myriad worlds. How could he not be wild with joy? Lucky star. This Mo Feng Hua first helped me break through the shackles of cultivation. This time, he helped me win 3 treasures. He's simply my lucky star. Mo Tiangong laughed heartily. He was very happy in his heart. The farmer-like old man was naturally furious and heartbroken. He wished he could grab Su Fong and choke him to death. Farmer, you can't be planning to vent your anger on a junior after losing the treasure, right? Mo Tiangong mocked. How could this old man be so petty? The old man said resentfully. Then his eyes flashed with a bright light. Blacksmith Mo, the divine tool that kid used just now, seemed to be. Mo Tiangong's eyes suddenly became sharp, and he snorted inexplicably, "Old thing, don't tell me you're coveting the treasure of a heavenly god junior? If that's the case, I might fall out with you." Mo Tiangong, what kind of person do you think I, Shen Wuji, am? Why would I plunder the fortune of junior? The old man laughed in embarrassment. Suddenly, both of their divine lights changed slightly at the same time. Mo Tiangong laughed and said, "The G people are really arrogant to the point of lawlessness." The old man named Limitless Life chuckled. This G people's junior created such a formation and caused this old man to lose so miserably. I have nowhere to vent my anger, but he delivered himself to my doorstep. Whoosh! High up in the sky, a huge flying sword that was 1,000 feet long tore through the air. A sharp and domineering aura formed an enormous pressure that enveloped the entire Kuan Su divine sect. Jiang, the expert of the Ji people, Jiang, had once again arrived at the Kuan Su divine sect. Ji Xingyue stood behind Jiang with an arrogant and domineering aura. As it turned out, Jiang's purpose in coming to the Star Billow divine realm was to deal with Su Fong's matter, and that was to recruit geniuses and seedlings for the Ji people during the Kamiko Hoshino tournament. Therefore, after Jiang sealed Su Fong with a formation, he left the Star Billow divine realm. Jiang naturally knew about Fan Su's suicide. He thought that the 3 divine kings had asked the big shots behind them to pressure the higher-ups of the Sanskrit and save Su Fong's life. Although Jiang was surprised, he did not take it to heart. The 3 divine kings were master artificers, and their strength and connections were extraordinary. However, the Ji people were not afraid of them. When Su Fong rushed out of the Great Vicissitudes formation, Jiang, who was far away in the Star Billow divine realm, immediately sensed it. Shocked and shocked, he immediately activated his divine artifact and rushed over. Mo Fenghua, I really didn't expect you to walk out of the Great Vicissitudes formation that I personally created in less than 100,000 years. Heavenly God Realm. Ji Ang's expression changed instantly when he sensed Su Fong's aura. 80,000 years had passed in the outside world, But the flow of time inside the Great Vicissitudes formation was 1,000 times different from the outside world. In other words, only 80 years had passed in the formation. Jiang naturally did not know that Su Fong had a time cave. In such a short time, Su Fong had actually broken through from the 8th heavenly god realm to the 1st heavenly god realm. Such a speed of improvement was rare even among the Ji people, let alone the star below divine realm. How could Jiang not feel extremely shocked? Moreover, Su Fong even broke through the Great Vicissitudes formation that he personally created. This child is heaven-defying. Since I can't subdue him, then I definitely can't let him live. Su Fong's astonishing speed of improvement made Jiang faintly feel threatened. Cold, killing intent seeped out of his eyes. Just as he was about to attack, Ji Xinyue suddenly said, "Prehistoric inflammation is mine." Small matter. Jiang nodded. In the next moment, Jiang formed a seal. The power of time suddenly descended and enveloped Su Fong. "Jiang, you dare!" Xianlingzi was shocked and furious. He charged at Jiang without regard for his own safety. The 3 divine kings were just about to activate their divine abilities when they suddenly stopped. Then, they revealed looks of surprise and joy. It turned out that Mo Tiangong secretly transmitted a message to him, telling him not to attack. With a peerless expert like Mo Tiangong here, even if Jiang had the strength of a great realm's realm lord, how big of a wave could he create? Why do you have to bare your fangs and brandish your claws in front of me? Die! Cold killing intent flashed in Jiang's eyes. He rolled up his sleeves, and a mysterious and powerful aura of the Great Path swept out. Xianlingzi was only 100 feet away from Jiang. However, this mere distance had now become endless. Xianlingzi felt time fly by. No matter how he used his movement technique, he was still 100 feet away from Jiang. At the same time, there was a power of time that caused Xianlingzi's lifespan to decrease rapidly. In a short span of 2 or 3 breaths, Xianlingzi's head turned snow white. His skin became like tree bark. A thick aura of death spread from his body. He was about to reach the end of his life. The same thing happened to Su Fong. The terrifying power of time caused him to rapidly turn from a 17-year-old to a 20-year-old youth, then middle-aged, and then old. The Great Path of Time's divine ability was actually so terrifying. Jiang. Su Fong's eyes burned with hatred and anger. Prehistoric inflammation also merged with his physical body to wear down the terrifying power of time. However, facing a terrifying existence of a great realm lord, he was completely powerless. The difference between the two was too great. Jiang looked at Su Fong, his eyes filled with coldness. Ji Xingyue reminded, "Father, prehistoric inflammation." Jiang smiled and said, "Don't worry. Prehistoric inflammation is a treasure of heaven and earth. Life is almost eternal. Even if Mo Fenghua, this ant, turns into ashes, prehistoric inflammation will not be destroyed by Father's power of time." Suddenly, a mysterious aura swept past like a breeze. It circled around Su Fong and Xianlingzi, and then suddenly burrowed into their bodies. This aura was very ethereal and ethereal. It contained a supreme, great path of law. Only Su Fong and Xianlingzi could sense it. Jiang did not sense it at all. When the aura entered their bodies, it immediately turned into a majestic and mysterious life aura, crazily roaring inside their bodies. Then this life aura quickly merged with the two's divine bodies. Like a withered seedling suddenly receiving rain, the two's divine bodies immediately glowed with astonishing life power. Jiang's power of time, the life that he had lost under this mysterious life aura, immediately disappeared. The withered blood energy, the life that had been worn down by time, recovered to their peak state at an unimaginable speed. Not only that, Xianlingzi and Su Fong's life power was rising at an astonishing speed. The two gained great benefits in just a few breaths. It was comparable to cultivating in seclusion for millions of years. Xianlingzi's benefits were especially obvious. His snow-white hair quickly turned grayish-white. and then it became glossy black. On his face, the death spots that would only appear on a person who was about to die quickly disappeared. His bark-like skin quickly became smooth and elastic. Not only his appearance, but his aura also instantly became like a middle-aged man in his 30s. However, not only did his cultivation not decline, but it also improved, reaching the peak that could break through at any time. Such a scene could be called defying nature and changing fate. Xianlingzi, who had already fallen into despair, was dumbfounded. In the distance, the three divine kings and the others were also dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 1925. While Su Fong was communicating with Luo, a huge commotion suddenly came from his body. He quickly peeled off a yang spirit to check the yin-yang Dao wheel. The 58th meridian that was being attacked was mostly burning with shocking yang qi flames. After fusing with a large amount of prehistoric spirit flames and the flame essence of prehistoric inflammation, this yang meridian had accumulated enough yang qi long ago. The only thing it lacked was an opportunity to be born. Unexpectedly, after absorbing a portion of the mysterious aura, the 58th yang meridian that had been dormant for a long time was actually on the verge of being born. Su Fong was surprised and happy. However, this was clearly not the time for the birth of a yang meridian. He quickly sealed the yang qi. It would not be too late to attack this yang meridian after dealing with this crisis. Xianlingzi and Su Fong's shocking changes shocked everyone. Jiang was also quite shocked. However, in the next moment, he let out a furious roar and pounced towards Su Fong. Whoosh! From a void, another ethereal breeze blew over. However, this time, it was not aimed at Su Fong and Xianlingzi. Instead, it was aimed at Ji Ongpoof. The mysterious aura enveloped Ji Ong and quickly seeped into his body. Ji Ong was shocked to find that his cultivation was immediately suppressed from the realm lord of a great realm to the first heaven of a celestial god. Which senior is joking with me? Senior, please give face to the Ji people and be merciful. Jiang was not a fool. He immediately understood that there was a peerless expert secretly making a move. To be able to use such a shocking ability, it was definitely a famous peerless figure in the myriad realms. It was definitely not someone he could fight against. In his shock, Jiang immediately brought up the Ji people. In the myriad realms, the name of the Ji people was still very useful. Even those domain lord experts had to give some face to the Ji people. So what if you're the Ji people? What this old man can't stand the most is people like you who bully the weak and bully the weak. If you have the ability, why don't you suppress your cultivation and fight with that kid? Sheng Wuji's voice was filled with disdain. Then he sent a voice transmission to Su Fong. Boy, I'll give you a chance. Kill this bastard for me. This peerless expert seems to hold a grudge against Jiang. Su Fong was shocked and stunned. How could he have known that Sheng Wuji had a strange temperament? This time, he had made a bet with Mo Tiangong and lost a treasure. In front of Mo Tiangong, he was filled with anger and could not vent it on Su Fong. Therefore, Jiang had unfortunately become the target of his anger. Jiang. Su Fong's eyes flashed with fierce killing intent. With his current strength, he was unable to fight against a great world's sector lord. At this time, Jiang's cultivation was suppressed to the same level. What did Su Fong have to fear? Bastard, you caught me off guard and gained the upper hand in our previous confrontation. This time, watch how I suppress you. Ji Xingyue's hands parted and a full moon quickly formed. The strange power of lunar eclipse enveloped Su Fong. You father and son treated me like an ant. You killed me as you wished and shackled me as you wished. Now, I'll make you pay back tenfold. Boom! The unique flame aura of prehistoric inflammation exploded from Su Fong's body. The strange power that enveloped him instantly disappeared. Su Fong activated the winged divine artifact and turned into a ray of light. With a whoosh, he instantly closed in on Ji Xingyue and punched out with the power of his divine body. A peak middle-grade divine artifact was activated to the extreme by Su Fong. His speed was so fast that Ji Xingyue could not even react. Just as a look of fear appeared on his face, Su Fang's devastating punch landed on his face. Crack, crack, crack. Ji Xingyue's chest exploded with blood and flesh. His bones shattered, and his internal organs were shattered by this punch. His divine body almost collapsed. Without circulating his divine essence or using any ability, Su Fang's punch heavily injured Ji Xingyue and almost killed him. Little bastard, you dare! Ji Ong gritted his teeth and activated the Great Tao of Time ability. A burst of time power swept towards Su Fang like a wave. His cultivation was suppressed to the height of a first firmament celestial god. Although Ji Ong could still release the powerful Great Tao of Time ability, its power was not even 1% of his peak state. Su Fang sneered disdainfully. The Great Tao of Time turned into an arrow of time formed by black and white energies. It had the shocking momentum of exploding time and space and forcibly tore a crack in Ji Yang's ability. Bastard, you actually mastered the Great Tao of Time ability? How is this possible? Ji Yang was shocked and looked at Su Fang in disbelief. Su Fang took advantage of the situation and charged out, activating the silver Krite sword. In a flash, the dazzling silver Xianguang pierced a transparent hole in Ji Yang's chest. Little bastard, you actually dare to injure me? Ji Yang was worthy of being a powerhouse equivalent to a great world's realm lord. His divine body was incomparably powerful. To a celestial god realm cultivator, it was practically a fatal injury. Only to see blood roil on his wound, and the injury immediately healed. However, being injured by celestial god realm made Ji Ong shocked and furious. So what if I injured you? Su Fang smiled coldly. He took a step out and activated Heaven's Sealing Frost. A terrifying aura that could freeze and crush everything erupted. Shackling Ji Ong. Heaven's Sealing Frost was a supreme grade divine artifact. At this time, it was fused further by Su Fang and could already activate about 50% of its power. If his cultivation was not suppressed, Ji Ong would not care about the power of a supreme grade divine artifact at all. However, he was only in the celestial god realm now. Although he wanted to, he was powerless. His divine body was shaken, and his movements became difficult. Chi. Another burst of sword chi erupted from a silver Krite sword, coiling around Ji Yang's right arm and cutting it off. Su Fang grabbed the air and grabbed the right arm. He directly kept it in his inner world and sealed it. The divine body of a powerhouse at the same level as a great world's realm lord contained a majestic life force. It was the supreme material for Su Fang to recover his life force, and for Qing Yu, undead lord, and the others to cultivate. Mo Fenghua. As expected of a powerhouse, blood roiled and quickly condensed. After squirming for a while, a brand new right arm grew out. Chi. The silver Krite sword exploded again. The silver light cut off the newly grown right arm. Su Fang happily kept it again. Mo Fenghua, I will kill you. Ji Ong was almost mad with anger. How noble and powerful were the powerhouses of the Ji people. At this time, his divine body was being cut up by First Heaven's celestial god. How could he not be angry? Isn't your divine body very strong? Why don't you continue growing? Seeing that Ji Yang's right arm was still not growing, Su Fang couldn't help but urge him. A stream of blood spurted out from Ji Yang's mouth. This time, it wasn't because he was injured. It was because he was angry. It's not bad to have this blood chi. Su Fang immediately released the fire lizard. It opened its mouth and sucked in the blood chi in the air. The fire lizard that he tamed in the Sui Yu cave had swallowed a lot of primitive spiritual flames. It had already reached the peak of the heavenly god realm. Now that it had swallowed Ji Ang's blood chi, although it was only a small amount, it caused the fire lizard to undergo a shocking transformation. A wave of demonic chi surged out from its body and turned into demonic flames. It was about to break through. Find a place to break through. Don't worry about anything else. Su Fang wasn't surprised. He ordered the fire lizard to find a place to break through at Kuin Su's divine sect. A dignified expert of the Ji people actually had his blood chi devoured by a big goblin right in front of him. The big goblin then used his blood chi to break through. Jiang was so angry that his vision darkened, and he almost fainted. Su Fang activated the flying divine artifact behind him again. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Jiang Dai. Jiang opened his mouth and spat out a flying sword. Who knew that before the flying sword could unleash its power, Su Fang's eyes suddenly burst out with a mysterious purple xianguang. A wave of terrifying divine aura that came from controlling a magic treasure burst out. The flying sword hadn't transformed back into its original sword form. It let out a trembling hum from Jiang's mouth. It was actually somewhat out of control. The one who should die is you. Su Fang roared. Prehistoric inflammation fused with his divine body. A terrifying divine aura of flames burst out like a flash flood. Even though Jiang's divine body was incomparably strong, it was still burned by the divine aura of prehistoric inflammation until it emitted a burnt smell. Prehistoric inflammation was a domineering divine aura that could turn everything in the world into flames. It made an expert like Jiang feel as if his flesh, life force, divine essence, and even primordial spirit were about to combust. Chi! Su Fang activated the silver Krite sword again and slashed at Jiang's left arm. As a result, Su Fang obtained another arm of a great realm lord expert. After being severely injured in such a humiliating manner, Jiang was like an injured, ancient, ferocious beast. However, his cultivation was suppressed. At most, he was a ferocious beast that had lost its claws and teeth. Seeing that Jiang still hadn't activated his blood chi to reform his arms, Su Fang's gaze swept across Jiang's legs. It wasn't that Su Fang didn't want to kill Jiang. However, he also knew that if he really killed Jiang, the Ji people would definitely seek revenge at all costs. At that time, it would be hard to say if Mo Tiangong and that expert would still help him. The power of an outsider could be borrowed once. One couldn't rely on others every time. One's own strength was the most important. However, Su Fang didn't plan to let Jiang have an easy time. If he missed this opportunity, it would be very difficult for him to even touch a strand of Jiang's hair. Sensing the greed and coldness in Su Fang's eyes, Jiang was finally afraid. If Su Fang really cut off his arms and legs, even if he could keep his life, he wouldn't be able to see anyone in the future. Kid, enough is enough. Sheng Wuji and Mo Tiangong's figures appeared from the void. Greetings, martial ancestor. The three divine kings hurriedly knelt down towards Mo Tiangong. Xianlingzi and the others were also shocked. They knelt down towards Mo Tiangong and Sheng Wuji. You suppressed this same cultivation, yet you ended up in such a miserable state. Other than using the Ji people's tiger skin to bully the younger generation, what else can you do? The Ji people are also declining. Scram, leave the star below God realm. Sheng Wuji waved at Jiang. Chapter 1926. Su Fang's cold gaze swept across Jiang's arms. Congratulations, Lord Jiang. You've grown 2 new arms. Jiang's divine light changed slightly. Aside from resentment, there was also a trace of lingering fear in his eyes. For an expert like Jiang, the damage to his divine body was merely a loss of blood and chi. However, an ant-like existence had cut off a part of his god body like cutting a leak. No matter what, Jiang didn't want to experience this kind of pain and humiliation again. Sheng Wuji shouted coldly, "Junior of the Ji people, there's no need to say those meaningless words. I've already set my eyes on this kid. He will be listed on the primordial chaos golden list. So, you can't touch him, not even the Ji people. If he loses even a strand of hair, the Ji people will have to bear the consequences. If you don't believe me, you can go back and ask your patriarch." As he spoke, Sheng Wuji waved his long sleeve and sent Jiang flying more than 10 miles away. Primordial Chaos Golden List? What's that? Jiang realized that his cultivation had been restored. He could not help but feel shocked. Then, he gritted his teeth and said, "I will report today's matter to the patriarch. Goodbye." This time, Jiang came aggressively. He thought that he could crush Su Fang like an ant. He did not expect to kick an iron plate. Not only did he hurt his bones, but he also lost his face. However, he could not take revenge. One could imagine the anger in Ji Ang's heart. Although he was unwilling, he had to swallow his anger. Suppressing his anger, he took Ji Xingyue and flew away on his sword. One day I, Su Fong, will kill the Ji people. I will kill Jiang for Mo Fenghua's parents, for my master, and for myself. I will even exterminate the Ji people. The grudge with the Ji people had just begun. Su Fong was filled with killing intent toward Jiang and the entire Ji people. It was 10 times more intense than the Sanskrit. Mo Tiangong released a divine aura that covered the space around the three of them. Brat, this old man will give you a piece of advice. Infinite Life glanced at Su Fong and saw through Su Fong's thoughts. Su Fong was shocked. He cupped his fists and said, "Please enlighten me, senior. Although you have some talent, have all kinds of powerful means, and have good luck, compared to the Ji people, you are not even an ant. How dare this Ji people treat you like this? But in front of this old man, you're as obedient as a cat or dog. It's nothing more than strength. If I were you, I would try my best to bear with it on the surface and avoid the brunt of it. When the opportunity arises, I would ruthlessly tear off a piece of flesh from the Ji people in the dark. If there comes a day when we have absolute power, we will wipe out the Ji people from top to bottom." Sheng Wuji no longer looked like an old farmer. Instead, he looked like a supreme overlord. His face was domineering, vicious, and somewhat shameless. "Thank you, senior, for your advice. This junior understands." Su Fong cupped his fists and bowed. Then Su Fong asked, "Senior, what is the Hunyuan Golden List? You don't need to know about this, and you can't reveal it to anyone. Also, the Golden Rainbow Monarch's token on you. Even this old man is tempted. Before you have enough power, it's best not to take it out in front of others." Infinite Life waved his hand at Su Fong. Even such a supreme expert values the heaven-breaking rainbow shuttle so much. Su Fong's heart trembled. He just realized that the heaven-breaking rainbow shuttle was more important than he thought. Infinite Life looked at Mo Tiangong. "Blacksmith Mo, this kid has helped you a little. This time, he helped you win so many treasures from this old man. Why don't you hurry up and give him some blood?" Mo Tiangong smiled bitterly and said to Su Fong, "If you are willing, this seat is willing to accept you as a disciple. Not only will you not have to worry about the Ji people and the Sanskrit, you will also be able to enjoy all kinds of cultivation resources that even the divine race's geniuses can't enjoy. Sooner or later, you will become a supreme expert." Su Fong was stunned. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, senior, for your kindness. This junior is used to being free and undisciplined. I can only accept the matter of taking you as my master." Infinite Life sneered, "Blacksmith Mo, this kid has helped you a little. He's like your teacher. You actually want to take him as your disciple. You're too shameless." Mo Tiangong's elegant face flushed red. Limitless Life continued. "Besides, which peerless expert didn't walk a path full of thorns? If you let him become your disciple and raise him like a pig or a sheep, no matter how fat he is, he won't be able to become a tiger or a wolf. It'll just be a waste of his talent." Although Infinite Life's words were crude, they were quite reasonable. Mo Tiangong completely dismissed the idea of taking him as a disciple. After thinking about it, Mo Tiangong took out 10 pills. This is the Saint of Fortune pill. It's a supreme spiritual medicine of the king of transcendence grade. It's greatly beneficial to the cultivation of a great world's realm lord. You've taken some when you were breaking through to the heavenly god realm. You should know the miraculous effects of this pill. Right now, you can only swallow a small amount each time. It's useless to give you more. I'll give you 10 as a reward for enlightening me last time." Saint of Fortune pill? Su Fong took the pills with both hands. He was very happy. Whether it was a divine weapon or a pill, as long as it had the word fortune, it was a supreme treasure. How could Su Fong not be excited? Infinite Life was extremely depressed when he saw his treasure being given away by Mo Tiangong. He said sarcastically, "And that ancestral dragon's hide and primal chaos gold. Why don't you take them out?" Mo Tiangong was forced into a corner. He said, "Fine. Thirdly, I've refined a natal divine weapon for you. I'll refine it again for you and mix in some primal chaos gold. As for the ancestral dragon's hide, I'll have to use my brain to see if I can use the scraps to refine a divine weapon for you." Su Fong didn't know about the bet between these two supreme experts. He was shocked and overjoyed. Unexpectedly, Mo Tiangong changed the topic. "However, I have a condition. You have to enter the top 100 in the Kimiko Hoshino contest. Only then can you get the treasure I refine." Infinite Life also spoke up. "Little brat, this old man and blacksmith Mo only helped you because of your talent. However, we can only protect you for a while. We can't guarantee that you will become a powerful expert. If you can't even get a little Kimiko Hoshino, then you're worthless. I'll erase you from the primal chaos gold list and leave you to fend for yourself. You have talent and ambition. Your methods and scheming are far better than your peers. However, you lack a strong background that can help you rise. The Godchild contest gives all geniuses of humble origins a chance. As long as you show enough talent, you'll get the fortune that will lead you to the top of the universe. Now, the chance to change your fate is right in front of you. You have to grasp it yourself. Farmer, let's go." Mo Tiangong and Infinite Life escaped into the void and disappeared without a trace. The divine aura that shrouded the space also disappeared without a trace. The Godchild contest isn't as simple as I thought. It's most likely as Luo guessed. What is the primal chaos gold list? Even the patriarch of Sanskrit was scared of it. Su Fong secretly guessed in his heart as he flew toward the three divine kings, Xian Lingzi and the others. The three divine kings were indeed master refiners. They had already upgraded the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, the Xianming Thunder Archive, and the Underworld Samsara Sword to divine artifacts. Moreover, they were all middle-grade divine artifacts. With the three divine kings' current level of refinement, they could refine top-grade divine artifacts. However, these three artifacts were only doctrine artifacts after all. Their foundations were too low. If they were upgraded too quickly, the artifact spirits wouldn't be able to withstand it and would directly collapse under the divine power of the divine artifacts formations. Not to mention helping Su Fong better control the divine artifacts and explode with greater power. The three divine kings also refined a natal divine artifact for Su Fong. It was a treasured cauldron that could be used to refine artifacts. It could also release the divine power of earth and fire. It was just right for Su Fong to cultivate the way of earth and prehistoric inflammation. Su Fong hadn't seen what the natal divine artifact looked like before it was taken away by Mo Tiangong before he left. He didn't know when he would be able to see what the natal divine artifact looked like. He also didn't know what kind of power it would have after being refined by Mo Tiangong. "Thank you, three great masters." Su Fong was naturally overjoyed that all three artifacts had been upgraded to divine artifacts, especially the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, this natal magic artifact, which had accompanied him since he was in the small world until now. He had a very deep relationship with it. Now that it had also been upgraded, he naturally felt happy from the bottom of his heart. It was as if his cultivation had been upgraded. Xian Lingzi didn't know that the three divine kings had upgraded the quality of Su Fong's three artifacts, so he didn't have any suspicions. "Mo, fellow Taoist, why are you being so polite with me?" The three divine kings almost called Su Fong Sr. Fortunately, they changed their words in time. However, their attitude towards Su Fong was incomparably respectful, which shocked Xian Lingzi and the others. Su Fong was about to answer when his divine light suddenly changed slightly. He cupped his fist towards the three great masters and then flew down towards Kuan Su's divine sect. As soon as he landed on the ground, Su Fong immediately unsealed his Yang Meridian. Then, he activated the 9 Yang, 9 transformations to attack the 58th Yang Meridian. Again and again, not only the Yang Qi in the Yang Meridian, but the power of the Yin-Yang world and divine essence also poured into this meridian. Qi. This meridian shook violently, and a pure Yang divine light suddenly exploded. The meridian instantly turned into a jade-like substance. The 58th Yang Meridian was finally born. It's really not easy. After the sixth transformation, every birth of a Yang Meridian is so difficult. Su Fong wiped the sweat from his forehead. At this time, the newly born Yang Meridian also moved and connected with the 57th Yang Meridian, becoming a part of the outer layer of the Yin-Yang Tao wheel. An extra Yang Meridian meant that the Yang Qi in the body increased. At the same time, Su Fong's cultivation speed also increased. The Yin-Yang Tao wheel was the universe of Su Fong's inner world. Another Yang Meridian was born, which also meant that Su Fong's world had become even more vast, and the world's growth had taken another step forward. There were less than 10 years left before the Kamiko Hoshino tournament began. Chapter 1927. This was the first time Su Fong had walked out of small realm and entered a large realm. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. After walking out of the Stargate, Su Fong quickly shook off the discomfort caused by the teleportation between two realms. The Star Billow God Realm. The Star Billow God Realm that appeared in front of Su Fong shocked him beyond words. In the boundless galaxy, pieces of matter and stars floated in it, moving according to an incomparably strange orbit. It was like a boundless ocean that rose and fell, giving Su Fong a strong visual impact. This was only the tip of the iceberg that Su Fong could see with his great perfection power. In fact, it wasn't even the tip of the iceberg. If the Star Billow God Realm was displayed in front of his eyes, how spectacular and shocking would it be? Su Fong activated his purple energy spirit, and his eyes turned purple. The Star Billow God Realm he saw instantly changed. As these stars and matter revolved, they formed an extremely terrifying movement of the heavenly law. It made Su Fong tremble, his heart filled with shock and awe. A feeling of being as small as an ant spontaneously rose in his heart. Is this a large realm? Su Fong was so shocked that he asked Luo, who was in the depths of his time and space cave. Yes, this is a large realm of the God Realms. Furthermore, the Star Billow God Realm is a very ordinary large realm. Luo's voice rang out. Luo's next words shocked Su Fong even more. Whether it is a large realm or a small realm, they were all created by the peerless experts of all the realms in the universe. After countless years of evolution, they finally became what they are today. Some God realms, after the experts died, their divine bodies collapsed, and the worlds formed by their divine palaces scattered into the primal chaos to form giant material God realms. The divine palaces of gods can finally cultivate into a God realm for them to live and cultivate in. What kind of amazing strength does this require? Su Fong was shocked again. Yes, just like the world in your body, the divine palaces of the peerless experts of all the realms in the universe become a God realm when they cultivate to a certain level. Such a deity was at least an area lord. There are even some domain lords who use their supreme divine abilities to create pieces of matter and worlds. They sell them to the gods and profit from them. However, the world within your body is different from the divine dwellings of other gods. The world within your body is a universe of its own, and it encompasses everything in the world and forms its own heavenly Tao. Only those peerless overlords and supreme existences in the myriad of worlds are able to possess such a minor world within their bodies. It's impossible for ordinary region lords to cultivate a minor world within their bodies. The world of deities, on the other hand, is formed by the cultivation of one or several types of energy and laws. They have to rely on the universe to exist. Now, you should understand how powerful your 9 suns, 9 transformations is. When the world in your body grows to a sufficient height, the Star Billow God Realm that you see before you will be nothing more than a speck of dust in the vast expanse of heaven. He ended the conversation with Luo. Su Fong's heart was filled with shock as he stepped onto the flying treasure ship of the 3 divine kings and flew towards the depths of the Star Billow God Realm in the desolate void. Su Fong used this opportunity to enter the time and space cave to digest the great harvest from before. He wanted to stabilize his normal state as a first heavenly god and increase his strength before the Godchild tournament. This time, he was trapped in the Great Vicissitudes formation by Jiang and wasted more than 80,000 years of time. This made Su Fang's heart ache. How long did it take for him to step on the path of cultivation and ascend to the myriad of worlds? This time, he had wasted 80,000 years of time in vain. How could he not feel heartache? How could he not gnash his teeth in hatred towards Jiang? Fortunately, the harvest this time was also incomparably shocking. It more or less made Su Fang feel a little better. Su Fang sank into the time and space cave. After forming a seal, his physical body collapsed layer by layer, finally turning into a 500-meter-wide pool of blood. As it roared, a divine power of reincarnation and devouring exploded. Su Fang's divine body had absorbed some of the mysterious aura of the great path of life from endless life, causing his perfect physical body to undergo a shocking transformation. His various true bodies, especially the Yellow Spring true body, the Black Lotus true body, and the Dragon subduing true body, had undergone the greatest transformation. Now that he had turned into a pool of blood, it already had the aura of a boiling sea of blood. Its area had also expanded to 500 meters. Its power was more than 10 times stronger than when it was in the true God realm. The transformation of the Yellow Spring blood sea naturally caused its devouring ability to become incomparably shocking. In the Yellow Spring blood sea state, Su Fang madly devoured pills. They were not ordinary pills, but creation saint pills. Su Fang did not dare to devour too much this time. Instead, he peeled off some of the medicinal foam and diluted it with spiritual water before slowly devouring it. Otherwise, the medicinal power would directly cause his divine body and divine palace to collapse. The medicinal power of the creation saint pill is too vast. For me, the quality of the pill is still too high. I have to find a way to refine the pill and refine the yin-yang immortal sky pill that can be used in the myriad worlds. As the medicinal power was gradually absorbed by the Yellow Spring blood sea, Su Fang's cultivation increased at an astonishing speed. The world tree was also growing at a speed 10 times faster than before. If it was an ordinary god whose divine body was not strong enough, and whose cultivation realm was not high enough, it would be almost impossible to control such terrifying medicinal power. Their divine body and divine palace would directly explode. However, Su Fang was different. His divine body and realm were far beyond his current cultivation. There was no such thing as being unable to control the energy in his body, because his cultivation was higher than his realm. While increasing his cultivation, Su Fang also processed Jiang's 3 arms and refined them into blood crystals to cultivate the Yellow Spring blood sea technique. In addition, he let Qing Yu, Fire Lizard, Undead Monarch, and other subordinates use the shocking blood energy in the blood crystals to cultivate. Jiang's cultivation was equivalent to a great realm master. The blood energy contained in his divine body was terrifying. After Su Fang and his subordinates devoured this blood energy, it was simply unimaginable what kind of transformation they would undergo. If Jiang knew that his blood energy helped Su Fang and his subordinates, he would definitely vomit blood from anger. About 3 years later, the yang spirit that Su Fang left outside the Cavern of Time, since the primordial spirit transmitted by Xianlingzi, Fenghua is about to arrive at the hidden soul island where Kuan Su's divine sect resides. In the Cavern of Time, the blood water quickly rolled and condensed from the center into Su Fang's physical state. During the 30 years of cultivation in the Cavern of Time, the Yellow Spring blood sea was almost 10,000 feet long. This was the benefit that Ji Ang's blood energy brought to Su Fang. Leaving behind the blood-water doppelgangers to continue cultivating in the Cavern of Time, his original body flew out of the Cavern of Time and onto the treasure ship. Sensing Su Fang's aura, the 3 divine kings' divine light changed slightly. First Heaven Celestial God, Peak, Xianlingzi, Ling Xiangmei, and the others were all shocked. He had just advanced to the Celestial God realm, and in a short 3 years, not only had he stabilized his realm, but he had also advanced to the peak of the First Heaven Celestial God realm. How could they not be shocked? Ordinary gods might not be able to do it even after 300,000 years. You little monster, how did you cultivate to improve so much? Ling Xiangmei couldn't help but ask. Senior Mo gave me a few pills, and I accidentally improved. Su Fong chuckled. Xian Lingzi and the others were very depressed. They had accidentally improved by a large margin. How could they, who had cultivated bitterly for at least hundreds of thousands of years, and at most tens of millions of years, only have a small improvement? At this time, a god flew over from behind on a flying sword. This god's cultivation was the same as Xian Lingzi's, and he wore a divine robe with layers of starlight. He was clearly a god from the star below god realm. Although he wasn't a big shot, his identity was definitely not ordinary. A lord from the star field is passing by. Make way, the god shouted at the treasure ship. The three divine kings said majestically, which lord from the star field is it that even this seat needs to make way for him? Three great masters. The god from the star below god realm hurriedly cupped his fists and apologized to the three divine kings. It's Lord Qishao Shinjun. He came to the star below god realm to host the god-child battle. Qishao Shinjun came personally. The three divine kings' expression changed, and they waved at the god from the star below god realm. Go, this seat will wait for Lord Qishao here. After that, the three divine kings explained to Su Fong. Qishao Shinjun was an expert under the master of the star field where the star below god realm was located. The more ordinary a realm master was, the more famous they were in the entire star field. Although the three divine kings were master artificers of the star below god realm, their strength and status were far inferior to Qishao Shinjun's. They had to be respectful in front of this person. The three divine kings sighed. I didn't think that Qishao Shinjun would come personally to the star below god realm to host the god-child battle. It seems that the master of the star field places great importance on this event. Qishao Shinjun, what a powerful person. Su Fong also wanted to see what kind of person Qishao Shinjun was. The treasure ship hovered in the air and waited for about an hour. There was a carriage pulled by 18 divine dragons, which was 100 miles long. It was surrounded by 100,000 gods, and it was moving toward Zhongyu in a grand and majestic manner. The carriage stopped 5 kilometers away from the treasure ship of the three divine kings. Su Fong scanned the carriage and its surroundings with his perfect vision. He couldn't help but be shocked. The mighty divine dragon was being ordered around like a beast pulling a carriage. The weakest deities around were at the heavenly god realm, and the carriage was a king-grade divine artifact that was at the peak of supreme grade. This Qishao Shinjun was no ordinary person. His power could be said to be overwhelming. Buzz, the Tao runes of the life shrinking technique suddenly exploded in his mind. He actually sensed an extremely familiar aura of destiny on the carriage. Su Fong couldn't be more familiar with this aura of destiny. Bai Ling. He actually sensed Bai Ling's aura on Qishao Shinjun's carriage. Sister Bai is a divine artifact left behind by the heavenly monarch of chaos in the outside world. She should be by the heavenly monarch of chaos side right now. Why is she on Qishao Shinjun's carriage? Su Fong was shocked and stunned. He immediately activated his perfect vision and the life-shrinking technique to sense Bai Ling's aura. Chapter 1928. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? After Su Fong ascended to the god realm, his biggest goal was to find Bai Ling. He didn't expect to meet her as soon as he arrived in the star below god realm. It was a pleasant surprise. He hurriedly activated his perfected ability and used the life-shrinking technique to sense Bai Ling. The three divine kings' ship was less than 5 kilometers away from Qishao Shinjun's chariot. Su Fong's life-shrinking technique easily captured Bai Ling's aura. Then, he used his perfected eye power to see her clearly. Sister Bai, this is... Su Fong's eyes suddenly glowed with anger. Why was this happening? On the chariot, a tall and mighty middle-aged man sat on a high platform like a giant volcano. He exuded a vast, majestic, and incomparably violent aura of fire. This person must be Qishao Shinjun. Below the platform, more than 100 beautiful women were dancing gracefully. All kinds of divine birds were flying around them to accompany them. Among these divine birds, there was a white crane. It was Bai Ling's true body. She was obviously being shackled. Su Fong could clearly see the pain in Bai Ling's eyes. He could even feel her humiliation. Sister Bai is being shackled and treated like a slave for others' pleasure. Su Fong and Bai Ling had known each other for the longest time, and their relationship was also the deepest. When he saw Bai Ling's current situation, his heart burned with anger, and he was about to fly out of the ship. Suddenly, a thunderous shout came. "Don't be rash. Qi Xiao Shanjun is definitely not someone you can provoke right now. Figure out what's going on first, then try to save that little crane." Su Fong had no choice but to dismiss the idea. He stared at Bai Ling from afar, his heart feeling like it was being cut by a knife. He tried to send his nascent soul to Bai Ling. However, there were layers upon layers of formations and restrictions on the chariot. Not only did the chariot have powerful defensive capabilities, it also had the power to block off Yuan Shan. It was impossible to transmit Yuan Shan. At this moment, the middle-aged man on the chariot raised his head and looked at the treasure ship. In an instant, Su Fong felt as if a torrent of lava was rushing towards him, giving him a terrifying feeling that he would be burned to ashes in an instant. What a powerful Qi Xiao Shanjun! Compared to Jiang, Qi Xiao Shanjun was even stronger. Ordinary heavenly gods couldn't even withstand a casual glance from him. However, compared to peerless experts like Mo Tiangong and Shang Wuji, Qi Xiao Shanjun was far from being on the same level. The three divine kings stepped forward and cupped their fists as they shouted. "The three divine kings of the Star Billow God realm greets Lord Qi Xiao. Third, there is no need to be so courteous in front of me." The three divine kings were truly the #1 artificers of the Star Billow God realm. Even Qi Xiao Shanjun was very polite to him. Qi Xiao Shanjun was about to continue speaking when he saw Su Fong behind the three divine kings from the corner of his eye. He said in surprise, "Prehistoric inflammation? I once heard that prehistoric inflammation was born in a certain small realm. In the end, it was obtained by a true god. Could it be you?" Su Fong immediately felt a huge amount of pressure. He bowed and replied, "Yes, it is I. Your luck isn't bad, but it's a pity that you have prehistoric inflammation." Qi Xiao Shenjun looked regretful. Then, he extended an invitation to the three divine kings. "Third, since we've met, why don't you come over? Here's my chance." Su Fong immediately transmitted his voice to the three divine kings, asking them to think of a way to save Bai Ling from Qi Xiao Shenjun. Even if he had to pay a huge price, he wouldn't hesitate. The three divine kings were stunned, but they immediately agreed. They put away the treasured ship and entered Qi Xiao Shenjun's carriage. The enormous and incomparably luxurious carriage started with a rumble and slowly drove past the treasured ship. Su Fong could only watch as Bai Ling brushed past him. Su Fong, Xianlingzi, and the others arrived at the Hidden Soul Island where Kuan Su's people from the God Realm lived. The Hidden Soul Island was actually an island-like floating material in the periphery of the Star Billow God Realm's main realm. There were countless similar materials in the Star Billow God Realm. They were all the private territories of the gods of the Star Billow God Realm. As the Star Billow God Child battle drew closer, countless true gods flooded into the Star Billow Divine Realm. The main realm was unable to accommodate all of them, so they had to rent a place like this. The Hidden Soul Island was located at the edge of the Star Billow God Realm's main realm. It was the most desolate area. This was also something that couldn't be helped. Kuan Su's God Realm was only a small realm. Moreover, it was a small realm ranked at the bottom of the Star Billow God Realm. They could only live in a place like the Hidden Soul Island. Moreover, it was Master Kuan Su who spent a lot of money to invite the eldest disciple of the three divine kings, Master Lu, to come forward. Only then did they have such a place to stay. If they had no money or people, they could only spend their time in the void during the Godchild contest. It was similar to sleeping on the streets. When Master Kuan Su saw that Su Fong actually walked out of the Great Vicissitudes formation unscathed and even advanced to the peak of the first heaven of Celestial God Realm, he was shocked and pleasantly surprised. The other people were also all shocked. when Xianlingzi secretly told Master Kun Su about Su Fong escaping and Ji Ong suffering a loss. The latter's gaze when looking at Su Fong had some additional reverence. Then seeing Xianlingzi's age turn into a middle-aged man's appearance and obtaining such tremendous benefits, it made Master Kun Su endlessly envious. The Star Billow contest this time only gave Kun Su's God realm 100 spots. Due to Su Fong being shackled in the Great Vicissitudes formation, the spot that belonged to him had long been replaced by someone else. But Su Fong did not mind. Letting the 3 divine kings come forward and ask for a participation spot was merely a matter of lifting a hand. Because he was worried about Bai Ling in his heart, Su Fongda went to understand the matters of the Kamiko Hoshino contest. Then, he brought all kinds of information collected by Kun Su's divine sect and returned to a palace that Master Kun Su specially arranged for him. After waiting for 3 days, the 3 divine kings came to the palace. Qi Xiao is actually so greedy. It's just a crane demon, yet he actually proposed prehistoric inflammation as an exchange. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it. The 3 divine kings were extremely angry. Qi Xiao Shenjun also cultivated the great Tao of fire. Prehistoric inflammation was also of great use to an expert like him. The 3 divine kings wanted Bai Ling from him, yet he proposed such a condition. He clearly wanted to forcibly take Su Fong's prehistoric inflammation. Naturally, the 3 divine kings were unwilling to agree. However, the 3 divine kings were very clear about how Bai Ling ended up in Qi Xiao Shenjun's hands. According to Qi Xiao Shenjun, Bai Ling was casually bought from Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce by one of Qi Xiao Shenjun's subordinates. As for how Bai Ling ended up in Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce's hands, there was no way to know. If there's no other way, it's not impossible to exchange prehistoric inflammation, Su Fong said decisively. Su Fong said decisively. Although the primordial earth flame was extremely important to him, it was insignificant compared to Bai Ling, absolutely not. The 3 divine kings hurriedly stopped him. Let us think of another way. Isn't it just a little crane demon? After staying on Hidden Soul Island for 3 months, there was still no news from the 3 divine kings. Sister Bai has already attracted Qi Xiao Shenjun's attention. Qi Xiao Shenjun is determined to obtain my prehistoric inflammation. The 3 divine kings won't be able to do anything. It looks like I can only rely on myself. Su Fong used a rune talisman to contact Master Lu. Accompanied by Master Lu, he left Hidden Soul Island and headed straight for the Star Billow God Realm's main realm's god capital. Master Lu was anxious to curry favor with Su Fong, so he used all of his skills to bring Su Fong around the main realm's god capital. They went all the way to the center of the god capital. Su Fong looked at the sky. It seemed to be empty, but with his perfect vision, he could see a space with an ancient aura. He could even see the mountains, forests, dojos, and mystic realms in the space. Master Lu noticed Su Fong's expression and said in surprise, "Young Master's eyesight is indeed good. You can actually see where the Star Billow God Realm's core is at a glance." Su Fong didn't take Master Lu's compliment to heart. Instead, a trace of worry appeared in his deep eyes. That was because the life-shrinking art had sensed Bai Ling's extremely weak fate aura in the depths of the hidden space. Qi Xiao Shenjun was a big shot from Star Region. Naturally, the Star Billow God Realm had arranged for him to live in the most central place. Moreover, he was heavily guarded. With Su Fong's current strength, it was completely impossible for him to rescue Bai Ling from his side. Forcefully rescuing Bai Ling definitely won't work. The face of the 3 divine kings won't work either. It looks like we can only use prehistoric inflammation as an exchange. Su Fong couldn't think of any good ideas. At this time, Luo spoke up. Actually, you don't need to use prehistoric inflammation to exchange with Qi Xiao Shenjun at all. Luo, what ideas do you have? There's only one way, and that is to display your peerless talent in the Godchild tournament. Not only do you have to fight your way into the top 100, you have to do your best to display your talent. Su Fong said in surprise. Even if I become Kamiko Hoshino, I still won't be able to change Qi Xiao Shenjun's mind, right? Kamiko Hoshino's status was extraordinary, But in the eyes of a powerhouse like Qishao Shunjun, it wasn't worth mentioning at all. You still underestimated this Godchild tournament, and you also underestimated yourself. The Godchild tournament is a selection of geniuses from all over the universe, and you're valued by Mo Tiangong and that peerless powerhouse, and you're listed on the Primordial Chaos Golden List. Although I don't know what exactly it is, it's obvious that your talent has attracted the attention of peerless powerhouses. As long as you display your peerless talent in the Godchild tournament, those peerless powerhouses will value you even more. At that time, what will Qishao Shinjun be worth? Luo's analysis wasn't without reason. However, when it came to Bailing, Su Fong didn't dare to be careless. What if Qishao Shanjun tries to harm Sister Bai? What should we do? Since that little crane is so valuable, Celestial Monarch Qishao would definitely treat her like a treasure. How could he hurt her? Moreover, the three divine kings are also quite powerful, so Qishao Shinjun wouldn't dare to forcefully seize the prehistoric inflammation. Therefore, you don't have to worry about the little crane's safety in the short term. It seems like that's the only way. Su Fong made up his mind and no longer distracted. He wholeheartedly prepared for the Kimiko Hoshino tournament, taking out the information collected by Kuan Su's divine clan about the Godchild tournament. Su Fong's heart gradually sank to the bottom after reading it. Chapter 1929. Kuan Su's divine sect only had 100 spots, which made Su Fong mistakenly think that there wouldn't be many geniuses participating in the Godchild competition. Who knew that the number of participants would exceed Su Fong's expectations, reaching over 10 million. The main reason was that the majority of the geniuses were from the Star Billow Divine Realm. Other than that, there were also the small realms under the Star Billow Divine Realm, as well as countless family forces and other forces. Kuan Su's divine sect only got 100 spots in a gathering of 10 million people. From this, it could be seen that the overall strength of Kuan Su's divine sect, as well as their status and forces in the Star Billow Divine Realm, were not high. The large number of people might not mean anything. The strength of the geniuses participating in the Godchild competition was what worried Su Fong the most. From the information collected by the Kuan Su divine sect, it showed that the majority of the geniuses participating in the Star Billow Divine Sun competition had cultivations above the 6th firmament celestial deity realm. There were practically none below the 6th firmament. It wasn't rare to see experts surpassing the sky god realm. There were even geniuses whose strength reached the level of powerful elders like Xianlingzi. That wasn't all. For this Kimiko Hoshino competition, the forces and families behind the participating geniuses spared no expense. All kinds of powerful divine weapons, runes, and other powerful methods were taken out and handed over to the participating geniuses without holding back. As such, the intensity of the Godchild competition could be imagined. In the information collected by Kuan Su's divine sect, there was the ranking of the various geniuses in the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. Rank number 1 was a peerless genius named by Holan, who was specially introduced in the information. This person's cultivation had reached the level of powerful elders like Xianlingzi, and he was also the descendant of the Star Billow Divine Realm's Realmmaster. He was already famous in the entire star field, and it was said that he was one of the star field's top 10 young masters. Most of the geniuses in the top 100 were from the Star Billow Divine Realm, but there were also some from other forces. Su Fong also saw some familiar names in the information. Yi Yankong, Jing Zhuoran, Jiang Baojin, and the others were all listed, but they were ranked at the bottom. As for Kuan Su's 100 disciples, none of them was ranked in the top 10,000. A familiar name attracted Su Fong's attention. Xia Qijuan. After the prehistoric ruins experience ended, Xia Qijuan was expelled from Kuan Su's divine sect by Master Kuan Su, and his whereabouts were unknown. Who would have thought that he would be participating in the God-Sun competition as well? Who knew how he managed to get a spot to participate? Xia Qijuan's ranking was around 5,000. Such a ranking was already very shocking. Xia Qijuan, you better not meet me at the competition. Su Fong coldly smiled, not putting Xia Qijuan in his eyes. Because Su Fong's name wasn't on the list of participating disciples provided by Kuan Su's divine sect, It was natural that Su Fang's ranking couldn't be seen. However, Su Fangda speculated that if he unleashed his full strength, his ranking should be beyond the top 3,000. With his current cultivation, being able to achieve such a ranking among the 10 million geniuses could be said to be shocking. However, Su Fang's goal was to be in the top 100. Being in the top 3,000 meant nothing to him. My strength is still far from enough. If I hadn't been trapped in the Great Vicissitudes formation by Ji Yang, I could have killed my way into the top 180,000 years. Ji Yang, you really deserve to die. But it's difficult. Only then will it be challenging. How can it not be difficult to seize the opportunity to soar to the sky from the 10 million geniuses? Su Fang felt a heavy pressure, but at the same time, it was also a huge motivation. There were still a few years left. Su Fang entered the time and space cave and began to madly devour elixirs, settling into a state of cultivation. At the same time, Su Fang further integrated the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, the Xianming Thunder Archive, and the Samsara Sword, which had been upgraded to divine artifacts. After devouring nearly 1/10 of a creation saint elixir, Su Fang's original body, who was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the pool of blood, suddenly surged with astonishing tribulation chi. As soon as Su Fang left the time and space cave and appeared in the palace, the tribulation chi quickly turned into flames and burned fiercely. Su Fang had long expected this breakthrough, so he was neither happy nor sad, and began to attack again and again. Whoosh! Whoosh! The astonishing flames from the convergence of the tribulation fire and the illusory fire cloud swept out, almost burning the palace. Fortunately, Su Fang had already created a formation, otherwise, it would have caused another accident. Under the repeated attacks, a surge of promotion power began to sweep inside and outside his body, and the impurities in the placenta began to surge out. When everything calmed down, Su Fang completed this promotion and stepped into the second heaven of the celestial god realm. He could sense that there were two mysterious heavenly Tao marks in his divine abode. There were two heavenly Tao marks everywhere in his star vortex, inside and outside his body, and in his flesh membrane. His divine abode became a little deeper. Although it was not as good as the heaven and earth Tao palace, it was incomparably strong and abundant, many times stronger than the celestial god realm at the same level. The speed at which the world tree absorbed and released the power of the world of yin and yang also increased a lot, and the world formed by the 58 yang veins became even more vast. Ever since he advanced to the celestial god realm, the heavenly Tao Qi in his body became more and more obvious. A chaotic world was filled with mysterious chaotic light, which was constantly changing and contained the aura of the heavenly Tao. The aura of the heavenly Tao was very strange, and it contained all the mysteries of the great Tao in the universe, all the laws of the great Tao, all the origins of matter and energy, and it was constantly evolving and changing. The matter condensed by the nature Dharma had already become 1,000 miles large, and the dying Shu Yunkong was sealed here, with Zi Satin beside him. Qing Yu, Guege, Long Niao, Sunflower Mermaid, Fire Lizard, Undead Monarch, and the other subordinates, as well as the dozen or so experts he had subdued in the Suiyu Cave, Huang Lingyao, and Zhu Yan had all created cave residences, using the resources provided by Su Fang to cultivate. Second heaven of the celestial god realm, with the world in my body, various powerful abilities, and divine weapons, it shouldn't be difficult to enter the top 1,000, but this is far from enough. I can only try to improve during the competition. Su Fang counted with his fingers, and there were still about 3 years before the Kamiko Hoshino competition began. Therefore, Su Fang swallowed pills, stabilized his realm, and waited for the competition to begin. Mo Fenghua. The Kamiko Hoshino competition is about to begin. It's time to go to the divine capital. Kuan Su's voice came from the main hall. It's finally begun. Su Fang's spirit was roused, and he walked out of the palace. Kuan Su, Xianlingzi, and the other higher-ups of Kuan Su's divine sect, as well as 100 disciples of Kuan Su's divine sect, who were preparing to participate in the Kamiko Hoshino competition, were already waiting outside the palace. Imo Fenghua, the Kuan Su's divine realm is relying on you this time. Kuan Su cupped his fists towards Su Fong, and the other higher-ups also cupped their fists one after another, their eyes filled with anticipation. This time, the people of Kuan Su's divine sect were given the cold shoulder in the star below divine realm. If it weren't for the care of the third master's eldest disciple, Master Lu, they wouldn't even be able to find a place to stay. In Kuan Su's divine sect, they were high and mighty, but when they came out, they received such treatment. It was easy to imagine how they felt. In the end, it was because the overall strength of the Kuan Su's divine realm was too weak. Those 100 disciples were originally complacent, and they planned to soar to the sky in the competition. However, after seeing so many experts and geniuses, these disciples of Kuan Su's divine sect had long lost their lofty aspirations of leaving Kuan Su's divine sect. Their only hope was Su Fong. Special disciple Lan Gaoyang said loudly, "Brother Mo, my goal is to kill my way into the top 10,000. What about you? I'll do my best, and I won't embarrass the Kuan Su's divine realm." Su Fong nodded and said, "That's the most important thing. Protecting yourself is the most important, so be careful." Xian Lingzi was very worried, and he handed a storage ring to Su Fong. There were tens of millions of mid-grade elixirs stored inside, as well as a large number of spiritual items and rune talismans. The elixirs and spiritual items were used to recover and heal injuries during fights, while the rune talismans were mainly used for defense and attack. Of course, Xian Lingzi couldn't take out such a large amount of resources. It was the Kuan Su's divine sect that took out their foundation. Every participating disciple had it, but Su Fong had 10 times more than the others. "Grandpa, grandson understands." Su Fong cupped his fists and bowed to Xian Lingzi, Kuan Su, and the others. Then, he led the 100 disciples and flew into the sky. "Brat, don't embarrass your father. Here's something for you, work hard." Ling Xiangmei threw out a storage ring and shouted to Su Fongda, "Aunt May is really good to me." Su Fong peeled off a part of his consciousness and entered the storage ring, and he was immediately dumbfounded. In the storage ring, other than the elixirs and spiritual items he expected, there were also a dozen undergarments. Luo laughed loudly in the cavern of time and space. He laughed until Su Fong's face turned red, and he finally became angry out of humiliation. Soon, they arrived at the boundary outside the main realm. The cultivators of the star below divine realm led everyone into the main realm and came to the divine capital. Then, they used the participants' token to enter the space array above the divine capital that was created for the competition. When Su Fong was about to enter the space array, there was a sudden movement in the void high up in the sky. Then, Xian Guang appeared from the void and flowed down like a waterfall all the way to the divine capital. Then, it quickly condensed into a huge list that was 1,000 miles long. There was only one huge line of words on the list, Kamiko Hoshino list. As the Xian Guang flashed, countless names flashed on the list. They were the names of all the participating geniuses, but they weren't ranked. What kind of glory was it to be able to enter the divine sun list? Including Su Fong, all the participating geniuses of the Kamiko Hoshino competition felt their blood boiling. My name, Su Fong, must appear in the top 100 of the divine sun list. Su Fong's eyes shone brightly. The second sky, celestial god, is also participating in the divine sun competition. Looking at his outfit, he should be from Kuan Su's divine realm. Kuan Su's divine realm can't produce any other geniuses other than Earth Steambun. This guy must be here to make up the numbers. Su Fong's cultivation level attracted the attention of many people. They commented on him, and naturally, there was no lack of mockery and ridicule. Su Fong smiled faintly and ignored the mockery. He stepped into the space array. Chapter 1930. The spatial formation the star below God realm had created specifically for the Godchild tournament was very strange. It was a huge, circular space formed by layers of supreme divine abilities that looked like undulating waves. It was a spectacular sight. The participating geniuses from different god realms and forces each occupied a layer of space. They looked close to each other, but in reality, they were separated by endless space. Due to the isolation of the spatial formation, Su Fong could only sense a few layers of space around him, even if he pushed his power to the limit. He didn't find any familiar faces, but he did sense many geniuses whose strength surpassed the heavenly god realm. The rules of the Kamiko Hoshino tournament were personally set by Qishao Shinjun from the upper echelons of the star field. They hadn't been announced to the public yet, so no one knew what the rules were. Including the star below god realm geniuses, every participating genius was nervous and full of anticipation. 3 days later, Qishao Shunjun appeared on a floating platform in the center of the spatial formation, accompanied by hundreds of star below god realm giants. Just like the first time they met, Qishao Shunjun was bold, powerful, and domineering. He had a supreme aura that made people look up to him. Beside Qishao Shunjun was a middle-aged man in a starry robe. His aura was empty, and he gave off a vast and unpredictable feeling. It was the star below god realm's realm master. The appearance of so many experts caused millions of geniuses to hold their breaths. The entire space was filled with a nervous and excited atmosphere. Qishao Shunju nodded at the star below god realm's realm master and said, "Let's begin." The star below god realm's realm master slowly flew into the air, his majestic voice resounding throughout the enormous formation space. This seat will not repeat the importance of this star below god child battle. Now, this seat will place the rules in everyone's hands, so that everyone can remember them clearly. As soon as he finished speaking, swoosh, 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 from each layer of the formation space, glittering and translucent balls of light floated out like surging water droplets, appearing in front of each participating genius. I wonder if the rules of this tournament are beneficial to me. Su Fong reached out and grabbed the water droplet. The water droplet melted as soon as it touched his hand, and a large amount of information was interpreted by Su Fong's consciousness. It was the rules of this divine sun competition. The summit competition was divided into preliminaries and the official competition. Only those who entered the top 10,000 in the preliminaries could enter the official competition. Out of the 10 million contestants, only 10,000 were left after the preliminaries. It could be seen how cruel this competition was. From this, it could be seen that the purpose of the God-Sun competition was not to train, but to select. The great waves would wash away the sand, and the true, peerless geniuses would be selected from the numerous geniuses. The rules of the preliminaries were very peculiar and relatively fair. The preliminaries were held in the inner world of a divine artifact called the Universal Disk. Every participating genius entered the inner world of the Universal Disk with their Yang spirit. Then, there would be 10,000 years of cultivation. The Yang spirit would absorb the aura of life and the aura of nature in the world of the divine artifact, condense the divine body, and improve its cultivation. The 10,000 years mentioned here naturally refer to the time inside the divine artifact. 10,000 years was equivalent to 100 years in the outside world. In this way, all the contestants were placed at the same place. No divine weapons, pellets, or slaves could be brought into the world inside the divine weapons. Even the divine body and cultivation base had to start from scratch. The preliminaries were a competition of talent. Of course, there was no absolute fairness. First, it was the Godhead. When one was promoted to deity, the higher the quality of the Godhead that was integrated, the higher the talent would naturally be. Thus, one would have an innate advantage in the world of the divine artifact. The other thing was strength. The stronger the deity, the more powerful his Yang spirit would be. Naturally, his ability to control nature and use magic would be more powerful. Therefore, those contestants with higher cultivation bases would naturally have an advantage. Naturally, the speed at which the participants who had mastered supreme cultivation methods could cultivate in the inner world of the divine artifact was incomparable to that of the other participants. As for the method of calculating the results, it could not be simpler. After all the contestants had cultivated in the world of the divine artifact for 10,000 years, the real competition would begin. The number of other contestants killed would be the number of points. This method of calculating the results was not that novel. What surprised Su Fong was that in the world of the divine artifact, killing other contestants would not only allow one to obtain a score against them, but would also allow one to obtain the energy of the opponent's divine body to continuously strengthen oneself. This also meant that the more one killed, the higher one's score would be, and the stronger one's strength would be. This rule vividly displayed the law of the jungle in the myriad of worlds. The message also mentioned something that shocked Su Fong. The cultivation base obtained in the world of the divine artifact, regardless of whether it was obtained through cultivation or by killing other contestants, could be taken out of the divine artifact and turned into one's own cultivation base. What kind of divine artifact is the universal disc? How could it have such a nature-defying ability? Amidst the shock, Su Fong's eyes flashed with a bright light. This Divine Child Tournament was not only an opportunity to soar to the sky, but also a great opportunity to rapidly improve one's cultivation base. About 2 hours later, the Divine Child Tournament has begun. Geniuses, Qi Xiao Shunjun from the Starfield, and I will be watching your performance. Your family, elders, and everyone else is watching you. Go, fight with all your might. Fight for yourself, for your family, for your deity realm, and for your strength. Fight for a chance to soar to the sky. The majestic voice of the star, Billow God Realm's Realm Master, sounded again. From the layers of erased space, the roars of the contestants could be heard. Everyone's blood was boiling at this moment. The first place of the Divine Child Tournament belongs to me, by Holon. The top 100 will belong to the star Billow God Realm. The top 10,000 will belong to the star Billow God Realm. An incomparably domineering voice suddenly came from one of the erased spaces. Although the voice was domineering, it sounded as if it was a matter of course, and no one felt that it was arrogant. Everyone's voices were suppressed, and the tide-like voices suddenly stopped. Then arrogant voices suddenly sounded. The star Billow God Realm is mighty. Young Master by Holon is mighty. By Holon, one of the top 10 young masters of the star field, was recognized as the first place of the Divine Child Tournament. He regarded the first place of the Divine Child Tournament as something in the bag, and no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. By Holon's strength was there, and no one could deny it. However, he thought that the top 190% of the top 10,000 would belong to the star Billow God Realm. It was a little arrogant. The geniuses from the 8 God Realms and forces were all very unconvinced. The Kamiko Hoshino tournament begins. The voice of the star Billow God Realm's Realm Master reverberated, and rays of divine power descended from the erased space, enveloping every contestant. Qi Xiao Shunjun flew into the air, and with a flip of his right hand, a 1-foot square cyan disc appeared in his hand. Su Fong activated his great perfection realm power and carefully examined the disc. He saw that there were countless mysterious heavenly marks on it. Some were naturally formed, and some were inscribed. They interweaved into pictures of stars, the sun, the moon, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, wind, rain, lightning, and so on. It was as if everything in the world was contained in it. The disc emitted an ancient and mysterious aura, and it gave Su Fong the feeling that he was facing a part of the universe. Could this universal armillary disc be a creation divine artifact? Su Fong was shocked. Luo Zi replied from the time and space cave in his body. Although Qi Xiao Divine Emperor is considered an expert in the myriad heavens, he is not qualified to own a divine weapon of fate. Even if he is the master of this star area, the possibility of owning a divine weapon of fate is not very high. Su Fong asked in surprise, "What kind of divine artifact is the universal armillary disc?" It's obviously not a peak supreme grade divine artifact, nor a king grade divine artifact. The universal armillary disc's embryo should have been born from the chaos after the creation of heaven and earth. However, it hasn't taken shape yet and was refined by a powerful artifact refiner. This kind of divine artifact surpasses the king grade and is called a half-creation divine artifact. With Mo Tiangong's current level of artifact refinement, he should be able to refine a half-creation divine artifact with the embryo of a creation divine artifact. Because creation divine artifacts are extremely rare, a half-creation divine artifact is considered a supreme divine artifact in the star field. It's very extraordinary. The selection of geniuses from a major field actually brought out a divine artifact of this quality. This shows how much importance the star field attaches to the divine child competition. Luo's explanation gave Su Fong a clear understanding of the quality of divine artifacts. Buzz. Qi Xiao Shunjun activated the universal armillary disk. A beam of green light swept out. Within the green light, countless illusory figures were constantly flickering and changing, displaying various celestial phenomena. A powerful aura almost suffocated Su Fong. Moreover, his purple Qi Dharma spirit could sense that the divine power of the universal armillary disk was filled with the aura of creation of heaven and earth. A creation divine artifact was born from the creation of heaven and earth. Therefore, it possessed supreme destiny, which was something that no other divine artifact possessed. This caused the purple Qi Dharma spirit to roar wildly in his body. Release your son's spirit and enter the divine power of the divine artifact. Qi Xiao Shunjun shouted loudly. Swish! 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 All the participating geniuses released their son's spirit and poured into the divine power of the universal armillary disk. The green light flashed slightly and was sucked into the inner world of the divine artifact. The God-Son of God battle had begun. Su Fong's son spirit, along with the other participating geniuses, came to the mysterious and ancient space of the universal armillary disk. His son spirit was enveloped by green xianguang to sense the outside world. The divine artifact world of the universal armillary disk was filled with pure, natural aura of heaven and earth. It also contained abundant life, aura. The laws of the world were exactly the same as those of the outside world. Su Fong activated the heart of the sea mental cultivation method of the earth system. The natural aura of heaven and earth immediately seeped into the protective divine power formed by the green xianguang and gathered toward the sun spirit. Soon, a blurry figure condensed. With the sun spirit as the foundation, and with the natural aura of heaven and earth and the life aura of heaven and earth to condense a divine body and open up a divine dwelling. It is equivalent to reconstructing a physical body in the divine artifact space. I wonder to what extent I can raise my cultivation base within 10,000 years. Su Fong's heart was full of expectations. Chapter 1931. The internal world of the universal disk was very strange. There was only the sun spirit and no divine body or divine abode. The sun spirit couldn't use any god art here, but it could absorb the spirit energy of heaven and earth and form a divine body through mental cultivation. At the same time, Su Fong also used the ethereal true insight to madly devour the spiritual energy and life energy of the divine artifact world. The vague shadow of the god body gradually became real. The life aura in the world of the divine weapon combined with the natural energy. Magical changes took place, turning into flesh, bones, and veins. This experience was very strange and couldn't happen in the outside world. It could be seen how powerful the universal disk was. About 300 years had passed in the divine artifact world, and Su Fong with flesh and blood appeared. Then, Su Fong started to break through his meridians and open up his divine abode. The universal disk was Xianlingzi's powerful cultivation method, but it was only in a small place like the Koan Su divine world. It could only be considered above average in the entire star billow divine world. However, the heart of the sea allowed him to absorb a vast amount of heaven and earthling qi. Combined with the ethereal true scripture, Su Fong's speed of absorbing heaven and earthling qi and life qi was 3 to 4 times faster. Compared to those geniuses who had grasped powerful cultivation techniques, he was not inferior at all. Unfortunately, He couldn't cultivate the 9 changes of the 9 suns here, but the yang energy in the divine artifact world made it impossible to cultivate the 9 changes of the 9 suns. So he could only give up. The illusory fire cloud couldn't be cultivated here, either, because it required a special flame to fuse with the divine essence in the body. Only by fusing the divine essence with the divine essence and fire elemental divine might could the body possess fire elemental divine might. In this void world, other than the natural energy and mysterious life energy, there were no special flames that could allow Su Fong to cultivate the illusory fire cloud. Boom! After about 500 years, Su Fong's dantian and meridians disintegrated, forming a vast and empty energy space in his body. This was the divine abode. Then, Su Fong devoured spirit energy even more crazily and turned it into divine essence after being refined by the star vortex. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fong's chi also rose rapidly. From a mortal at the mortal evolution state to a god, he continued to rise without any bottlenecks or divine retribution. This went on for about 2,000 years. Su Fong's cultivation rose to second firmament celestial deity, equivalent to his true strength. The improvement was still ongoing, but the speed of improvement had obviously slowed down. At most, it was only 1% of the previous speed. It was like going from a broad road to a narrow road. However, the rate of improvement was more than 10 times faster than the outside world. My cultivation base in the divine artifact world can be brought to the outside world and fused with my true body. How can I miss such an opportunity to rapidly increase my strength? Su Fong seized the time to constantly devour the natural spiritual chi of heaven and earth, striving to improve his cultivation. Although Su Fong didn't know how much this cultivation base could improve his original body after he brought it out, he naturally wouldn't let go of any opportunity to improve himself. What's more, the higher his cultivation base was, the more strength he would have in the upcoming battle. Roughly 1,000 years later, Su Fong finally broke through to peak second firmament, reaching third firmament celestial deity. A powerful feeling that he had never felt before arose spontaneously in his heart. Not only Su Fong, but in the vast space of the universal disk, millions of prodigies were all in a state of cultivation, thinking of ways to improve their strength. Outside the universal disk, Qishao Shanjun sat majestically on the floating platform. Suddenly, he flipped his hand and grabbed a rune talisman. Then, he released a divine aura, isolating the surroundings from the outside world. A surge of magic power was injected into the rune talisman, and the melted rune talisman turned into an essence spirit shadow. Lord Divine Lord, according to your instructions, I've already investigated the cultivator who fused with prehistoric inflammation. Qishao Shinjun raised his brows. Oh, this person's name is Mo Fenghua. As Su Fong's experience was narrated by a subordinate, Qishao Shinjun's eyes revealed a surprised expression. In the end, Qishao Shanjun said indifferently, "This person is not ordinary. His background is also not ordinary. He's actually a relative of the G people, but he's still an ant. Lord Divine Lord, this person's yang spirit is inside the universal disk, and his divine body is left in the formation space. I only need to use a little technique to kill this person and take away his prehistoric inflammation." Qishao Shanjun was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's good." Just as he was about to wave his hand to erase the essence spirit shadow of his subordinate, that person suddenly said, "I just received a message from the region master. I still need to report it to you." Qishao Shenjuan's expression changed instantly. "Why didn't you say so earlier? Tell me, the region master doesn't have anything particularly urgent. He only said that Sheng Wuji and Mo Tiangong appeared in the Star Billow Divine Realm not long ago. It's possible that they have chosen a prodigy from the Star Billow Divine Realm to enter the Primordial Chaos Golden Roll." Primordial Chaos Golden Roll. Emperor Qishao sucked in a breath of cold air with a hiss. As an upper echelon of a star region, Qishao Shunjun naturally knew some inside information about the primordial chaos golden roll. Then, Qishao Shunjun made the connection that Mo Tiangong was the grandmaster of the three divine kings, and that the three divine kings had an unclear relationship with Su Fang. His heart immediately thumped. Could it be that the prodigy who was chosen by the two peerless powerhouses, Sheng Wuji and Mo Tiangong, is impossible? This person is only a heavenly god. How could he enter their eyes? Qishao Shunjun laughed involuntarily. The prodigy who entered the primordial chaos golden roll should be by Holan without a doubt. It seems that I must be on good terms with the Star Billow Realm Master. Qishao Shunjun made up his mind. Then he said majestically to his subordinates, Essence, Spirit Shadow, "Put aside the matter of the prehistoric inflammation for now. It won't be too late to make a move after Mo Fenghua is eliminated in the preliminaries. Be careful and don't let the three divine kings detect any clues." Yes, the Essence Spirit Shadow bowed and disappeared without a trace. Star Billow God Realm's divine capital. In the central region, inside a huge palace, the upper echelons of the Star Billow God Realm, including the three divine kings, as well as the realm masters and powerhouses of various smaller realms and forces, were all gathered in the palace. Master Kuan Su and Xianlingzi were among them. Because of the three divine kings, the two of them sat high up in the seats of honor. Kuan Su's overall strength was at the bottom of the Star Billow God Realm. Master Kuan Su's personal strength wasn't too strong either, but he was sitting above many powerful realm masters and powerhouses. Xianlingzi was just the supreme master of Kuan Su's divine sect. Why did he have to sit above so many experts? Everyone was very dissatisfied, but because of the face of the three divine kings, they couldn't say much. They automatically ignored the two of them, and some people looked at them with disdain. At the center of the palace, there was a huge screen of light that displayed the scene in the cosmic disk after being shrunk countless times. At this time, the real battle hadn't started yet. Only countless light spots could be seen on the screen, like stars in the galaxy. They were the miniature versions of the participating geniuses. Although their faces couldn't be seen clearly, the aura of the light spots could roughly determine where the geniuses came from. Master Kuan Su and Xianlingzi caught Su Fang's aura from the millions of light spots and paid attention to the changes of this light spot without blinking. The three divine kings were the same, and there was anxiety in their eyes. It seemed that they were more anxious than Master Kuan Su and Xianlingzi. As time passed, the light spots gradually became brighter. The brighter the light spots were, the higher the strength of the participants after a period of cultivation in the divine tool. Among them, there were a few light spots that were incomparably bright, like the stars in the night sky. The brightest one was naturally by Holan, and most of the others were the geniuses of the Star Billow divine realm. Master Kuan Su and Xianlingzi sensed that the light spot of Su Fang's aura was constantly rising, and the light it emitted was getting brighter and brighter. Although it couldn't be compared to the top geniuses like Bai Holan, it was still quite extraordinary among the crowd. Kuan Su's divine sect actually has such a genius. Many experts were astonished, and the way they looked at Master Kuan Su and Xianlingzi immediately changed. There was no longer the contempt and disdain from before. However, when they learned that Su Fang's cultivation was only at the second firmament of the celestial god realm, they were all stunned, and then they couldn't help but laugh. No matter how extraordinary Su Fang's talent was, after all, his cultivation wasn't good. How strong could his son's spirit be? Cultivating in the artifact space for 10,000 years, the height he could reach was very limited. It was impossible for him to pass the preliminaries. In the divine capital, the Kamiko Hoshino list hung high in the sky, and countless eyes were focused on the names that kept flashing on it. On a floating object outside the main realm of the Star Billow divine realm, a black-clothed man sat cross-legged on a mountain peak, and his eyes were fixed on the Godchild list. This person wore a black iron mask, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. His cold eyes made people shudder. Behind him, 3 people stood side by side, and all of them wore the same black iron mask, and their bodies were emitting a cold, murderous aura. One of them broke the silence. "Boss, although Xia Qijuan is somewhat extraordinary, he's just a stray dog. He's not worthy of your attention, is he?" "I'm waiting for him," the Iron Mask man said coldly, and there was a murderous aura in his tone. The three black-clothed men obviously knew who their boss was talking about, and couldn't help but sigh. In the internal world of a universal disk, 10,000 years have passed so quickly. Su Fong suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the green Xian Guang surrounding him. In 10,000 years, Su Fong's cultivation had reached the seventh heaven of the celestial god realm. After reaching the second heaven of the celestial god realm, it became difficult to improve, mainly because he had never reached this level before. It was like moving forward in the dark night. Although Su Fong had an extraordinary cultivation method, a primal chaos rank, and a mid-grade earth rank godhead, his improvement became as slow as a snail. Of course, this was relative to his improvement speed when he was below the second heaven of the celestial god realm. Compared to the majority of the participating geniuses, it was simply shocking that he could reach the seventh heaven of the celestial god realm with his true cultivation. The green Xian Guang around him flickered, and the protective divine aura disappeared without a trace. The real battle was about to begin. Chapter 1932. The preliminary competition begins now. The time is 1,000 years. Slaughter to your heart's content. Qi Xiao Shenjuan's voice was like the voice of heavenly Tao, reverberating in the divine artifact world. The divine child competition begins now. Su Fong was looking forward to it, but also somewhat nervous. Crossing swords with so many divine realm geniuses, and it concerned his own future, as well as Bai Ling's fate. How could he not be nervous? Bang! Bang! The entire divine artifact's internal world underwent an earth-shaking change. In the void space, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning suddenly appeared. All kinds of great Tao laws started operating. A scene like the creation of heaven and earth appeared before Su Fong's eyes. A boundless sky appeared above, the divine sun hanging high in the sky. Under the sky, a vast expanse of land rapidly condensed. One mountain after another rose from the ground. Forests and rivers also appeared. In a short few breaths of time, a near-real world was born. Above Su Fong's head, starlight rapidly converged. After a wave of surging and rolling, it condensed into a fist-sized star. The scattered light could be seen from 1,000 miles away. The divine body that reformed in the divine artifact world lost its great circle ability. But Su Fong already had seventh firmament celestial deity cultivation at this time. His eyesight could see everything within 1,000 miles. It was only to see one figure after another emerge from the void. They were precisely those participating geniuses. Like Su Fong, they all had a star suspended above their heads. Kill! These geniuses had just appeared and immediately charged at the people closest to them. A fierce battle unfolded in the sky above the world. Su Fong watched for a while. In a short 10 breaths of time, at least 100 contestants within 1,000 miles were killed. But it was not true death, but the destruction of their divine bodies. Their young spirits were automatically sent out of the divine artifact world by the divine power released by the divine artifact. The scene was intense and cruel, making Su Fong tremble with fear. "Brat, are you going to let your young spirit break free? Or do you want me to kill you and send your young spirit out by the divine artifact?" A genius charged at Su Fong, letting out a disdainful and incomparably arrogant laugh from afar. This person cultivated the great Tao of fire. The divine ability he displayed was very peculiar. The flames burning all over his body formed the silhouette of a flaming bird around him. It exuded a violent and ferocious aura, just like a divine bird of fire. This person's cultivation was sixth firmament celestial deity. After casting the divine ability, his strength immediately skyrocketed. Furthermore, the great Tao of Fire's attacks were the fiercest, making his current strength sufficient to kill a peak seventh firmament celestial deity expert. Su Fong's cultivation was at the 7th celestial layer. No wonder this person dared to be so arrogant in front of Su Fong. "You are the first." Su Fong shouted coldly in a domineering manner as he executed his movement technique, Earth and Ripple, and he relied on the powerful energy of the Earth to suddenly speed up while carrying a heavy and powerful, imposing aura as he charged towards that genius. "My ranking in the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce is over 13,000. You, a nobody, want to kill me?" The genius sneered disdainfully. The divine power of flames suddenly burst out, and as the wings of the ferocious birds flapped violently, monstrous waves of fire swept out, instantly engulfing Su Fong's figure. Courting death. The genius curled his lips in disdain. However, when his fire attribute divine power dissipated, he did not see the energy and life essence of Su Fong after his divine body was killed. He could not help but look at the star above his head, but there was no change either. "What you killed was the image I left there a breath ago, idiot." Su Fong's cold voice came from behind. The genius was immediately shocked. Just as he was about to urge his movement technique to flee forward, an earth-shattering, imposing aura bombarded his divine body, causing it to crumble with a loud bang. I actually failed to obtain any results and was eliminated in the preliminaries. "I am so unwilling." The genius's young spirit cried out in unwillingness and despair. Soon after, he was swept away by a divine power and escaped into the void. It turned out that Su Fong had used the great Tao of time, using the time difference of a breath to appear behind this genius and kill him easily. The star above the genius's head drifted to the top of Su Fong's head, becoming Su Fong's preliminary result. The collapsed divine body turned into energy and life essence, automatically floating towards Su Fong and seeping into his divine body. Su Fong felt his divine dwellings begin to tremble. Boundless life energy was wildly surging. After it calmed down, whether it was his cultivation or divine body, they had both increased by a large margin. This was equivalent to 100 years of cultivation in the world of the divine artifact. What surprised Su Fong even more was that the energy essence of this genius's divine body was all fire attribute energy. I wonder if this fire attribute essence can be used to cultivate the illusory fire cloud. A bold idea emerged in Su Fong's mind. Without hesitation, Su Fong activated his mental cultivation method. The divine power of the illusory fire cloud began to sweep through his body, and all the fire essence that had seeped into his body turned into a special burning cloud of fire through the cultivation of the illusory fire cloud. Suddenly, there was an additional divine power of fire in Su Fong's body, but it was not very strong. Then he sensed the divine abode. He saw a layer of fire clouds floating in the star vortex, and there were also marks of the way of the heavens on the star vortex, which looked very weak. It was formed by the cultivation of the illusory fire cloud. This method is indeed feasible. If I can use the illusory fire cloud in the universal disk world, my strength will definitely increase greatly. Su Fong's spirit was greatly lifted. Then he released his sensing power and swept the ground below. He sensed that there were rich ore deposits in the mountains, and all kinds of materials for refining weapons and elixirs could be found everywhere. The contestants' young spirits can't bring divine weapons and elixirs into the world of the universal disk, but there are no restrictions. They can't refine weapons and elixirs in the world of the universal disk. Since the Battle of the God Sun is a test of talent, the ability to forge weapons and refine pills is also one of the most important talents. The materials that appear in this world are not meaningless. They are specially prepared for alchemists and weapon forgers. If I'm not wrong, I should be able to refine divine weapons and elixirs here. I won't consider elixirs for now. I can directly kill other contestants to replenish my strength. The main thing is refining weapons. The cultivation of my original body is too low. No matter how hard I work, it's difficult to compare with those peerless geniuses. If I can refine divine weapons, then I can make up for this gap to the greatest extent and kill more contestants. In this way, not only can my results be improved, but my cultivation can also be improved rapidly. Su Fang's deep eyes flashed with a trace of light, and he went straight to the ground. He grabbed in the air, and a piece of or flew out from a cliff and fell into Su Fang's hand. Then Su Fang activated the illusory fire cloud, and his divine essence ran to his palms. Red flames ignited from his palms and slowly melted the ore. My idea is correct, but my fire divine power is still too low. It's difficult for me to refine weapons. If I want to quickly improve my fire divine power, there are two ways. One way is to find spiritual fire in the world of the universal disk, and the other way is to kill contestants who cultivate the great Tao of fire and devour the fire essence of their divine bodies. The second way is the fastest, but there are some risks. Su Fang made up his mind. Glancing at the stars above his head, Su Fang frowned. The scattered light of the stars was difficult to hide. After a moment, a stream of destiny Tao runes exploded from the depths and surface of the Yang spirit, and then spiraled up, turning into invisible divine power. It was projected in all directions with the sensing ability of a divine god. The Destiny Tao runes of the divine life shrinking technique were hidden in Su Fang's divine aperture, spiritual power ocean, and Yang spirit. At this time, the Yang spirit that entered the world of the universal disk was only a part of the divine life shrinking technique. After being activated by Su Fang, the power of destiny greatly decreased, and the ability to sense the outside world also weakened. However, with the help of the sensing ability, the range of sensing was also very shocking, reaching more than 10,000 miles. The ability of the divine life shrinking technique was to hide the aura of destiny, but it was difficult to hide the stars above his head. Su Fang could only rely on the sensing ability of the divine life shrinking technique to sense the enemy and make preparations in advance. In addition, he could also use it to sense the fire spiritual objects in the world. As a result, Su Fang began to collect refining materials on the ground, looking for spiritual fire or fire spiritual objects. With the sensing ability of the divine life shrinking technique, his sensing ability had reached the level of a divine god. If he encountered a contestant who cultivated the great Tao of fire below the divine god realm, he would not hesitate to kill him and devour the essence of the 7 fire elements to cultivate the illusory fire cloud. If he encountered a real master, Su Fang would escape immediately, and the master of the divine god realm would not be able to do anything to him. In the world of the universal disk, 500 years passed unknowingly. Su Fang settled in this state of accumulation, and his results were naturally a mess. What is this kid doing? In the world of the universal disk, there is no need to worry about his life. So, Xianlingzi naturally cared about his grandson's results. Seeing that there were only a dozen more light spots around Su Fang, it proved that he had only killed a dozen geniuses. Such results, among the many geniuses, even if he was not at the bottom, he was at the bottom. Xianlingzi couldn't help but become anxious. Most of Mo Fenghua's strength comes from the prehistoric inflammation and the divine weapon. Now that he has lost these things, no matter how talented he is, it will be difficult for him to compete with the other geniuses. His chances of passing the preliminaries are really not high. Kuan Su sighed helplessly in his heart. Looking at the other geniuses of Kuan Su's divine sect, there were many who had better results than Su Fang, but most of them paled in comparison. Kuan Su couldn't help but be disappointed. This time, Kuan Su's divine sect would probably return empty-handed. Senior Mo is the reincarnation of a peerless grand cultivator. He is unfathomable. How can the preliminaries of the Kimiko Hoshino tournament be difficult for him? Senior must be disdainful to compete with the other geniuses at the beginning and wait until the last moment to explode. At that time, he will definitely amaze the world. The 3 divine kings took it for granted and smiled faintly, not showing any disappointment. Chapter 1933. The Kimiko Hoshino ranking also started to display the rankings of the participating geniuses and gradually stabilized. Bai Holan. The first name was Bai Holan. This name shone brightly on the god-sun, ranking like a blazing sun, causing all the other names on the god-sun ranking to pale in comparison. Behind Bai Holan's name was a string of numbers that reached more than 200,000. The geniuses ranked below Bai Holan only had slightly more than 10,000. This was Bai Holan, one of the 10 great young masters of the star field. Such speed and strength were truly shocking. The top 100 of the god-sun ranking were all occupied by the geniuses of the star below god realm. The strength of the star below god realm was on full display at this moment. In the sky above hidden Soul Island, Ling Xiangmei, the yellow-browed great elder, and the other higher-ups opened their eyes wide as they searched for the names of the Kuan-Su divine sect disciples, especially Mo Fenghua's name. Mo Fenghua is there. 9,763,623. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot. In the end, they finally found Mo Fenghua's name in the sea of names. A ranking of more than 9,700,000, and it was still falling, causing Ling Xiangmei and the others to be extremely disappointed. This kind of result couldn't even be considered ordinary. However, Lan Gaoyang and the other special disciples performed well. A total of 3 of them entered the top 10,000. However, only half the time of the preliminaries had passed. In the following time, the competition would be even more brutal, and the situation was still not optimistic. The yellow-browed great elder said in a strange tone, Mo Fenghua is only relying on the power of the 3 great masters to show off in the Kuan-Su divine sect. When it comes to the real competition, her true colors are revealed. Great elder, there's still half the time left. It's too early to make a conclusion now. Ling Xiangmei was very depressed. Star below God realm, above the material outside the main realm. The cold iron-masked man's cold eyes searched the god-sun, ranking continuously. This kid Xia Qijuan is indeed somewhat extraordinary. He actually made it to the top 5,000. Amazing, this kid has a bright future. However, this kid's ambition is not small. We must be careful of him. So what if he's strong? Isn't he still boss's slave and obedient in front of us 3 brothers? We are the famous soulless who has dominated the Brahma heaven god realm, star below god realm, and more than a dozen other great realms. How big of a wave can this kid Xia Qijuan stir up? As it turned out, they were members of the assassin organization Soulless that had rapidly risen to prominence in the Brahma heaven god realm, the star below god realm, and the surrounding god realms in the past 100,000 years. Soulless. They were mysterious and powerful, ruthless and strange. They had never failed and even had the shocking achievement of successfully assassinating the realm lord of Small World. What was even more frightening was that most of the targets that Soulless assassinated were the people that they trusted the most, or even their own family members. Some of the targets, on the other hand, were killed uncannily under the protection of multiple barriers and experts. They did not even see the shadow of the assassins. As for Soulless assassins, very few people had seen their true faces. They only knew that Soulless Boss was extremely powerful and had strange divine abilities. There were even rumors that he was actually the master of a great realm. Who would have thought that Xia Qijuan would join Soulless after being expelled from Kuan-Su divine sect? The iron-masked man in black robes searched the Kamiko Hoshino ranking for a long time, but did not find the person he was looking for. A trace of disappointment appeared in his cold eyes. Standing up from the ground, the iron-masked man said indifferently, "There is no point in staying here any longer. Let's go. How should we deal with Xia Qijuan? The 3 of you stay here. If he can enter the top 1,000 of the Kamiko Hoshino competition, just agree to his request last time." After he finished speaking, the iron-masked man's black robes flashed with a layer of black xianguang, and he quickly disappeared into nothingness. Kuan-Su Divine Sect's secret realm. In the depths of the luxurious palace where Sir God Chi Shao lived, a He Yao who was shackled in a cage was looking outside helplessly and hopelessly from the other side of the cage. A few star below God realm cultivators in charge of guarding the big goblin were discussing the grand occasion of the Godchild competition. The one they were discussing the most was naturally Bai Holan. If brother ascends to the god realm, he will definitely participate in the godchild competition. Compared to brother, Bai Holan of the star below god realm is nothing. He Yao's eyes were filled with pride. This Yao was Bai Ling. From Bai Holan, Bai Ling thought of the scene when he first met Su Fang. At that time, she was seriously injured and on the verge of death, and it was Su Fang who saved her. However, when he thought of his current situation, Bai Ling's eyes dimmed again. Inside the Universal Universe disk, a bloody and cruel battle was playing out in the Dharma Treasures world. After 500 years of fighting, there were only 2 million geniuses left in the Dharma Treasures world. The cruelty of the god-child competition's preliminaries was evident. An even crueler competition was still to come. In the Dharma Treasures world, even if one could survive until the end, it was meaningless without any results. Next, every contestant would madly kill for the sake of a result in the preliminaries, and the competition would be even more tragic. On the ground, in the deepest part of a deep valley between 2 tall mountains, Su Fang sat cross-legged in a cave, his palms in the form of burning fire clouds. The shocking power of the flames made the originally cold and damp cave extremely hot. The rocks were burned red, and the rocks within 30 meters of him were even melted by the terrifying heat. In Su Fang's hands, a 1-foot-long Dharma treasure was condensing into the Tao Palace of heaven and earth in the shape of a flying knife. Before this, Su Fang had killed more than a dozen geniuses who cultivated the great Tao of fire, swallowed the fire essence of their divine bodies, and cultivated the illusory fire cloud. In addition, Su Fang had collected many spirit fires and fire-type spiritual items in the Dharma Treasures world, and finally cultivated his hands to the form of fire clouds. He could forge without a cauldron at all. Su Fang had never forged a divine artifact before, but he had comprehended the great Tao of forging of the Celestial Treasure Emperor. He treated his own body as a divine artifact, and he was a peerless divine artifact himself. His level in forging was enough to guide a master of forging like Mo Tiangong. Su Fang did not want to waste too much time on forging, so he only forged a low-grade divine artifact, and it was the simplest and most practical flying knife. As a result, his chances of success were extremely high. In addition, it was much easier to forge a divine artifact in the Dharma Treasure world of the Universal Armillary Disk compared to the outside world, and the time it took was much shorter as well. Clearly, the rules of the Dharma Treasure world were biased towards the forging master. After more than a dozen failures, Su Fang was about to succeed in forging the first divine artifact in his life. Su Fang activated the illusory fire cloud, and the Tao Palace of heaven and earth in the form of a flying knife burned wildly. Then, Su Fang formed a series of hand seals. It was the 3 divine kings' blazing star refining art. Last time, when he was guiding the 3 divine kings in forging, Su Fang saw that the hand seals were quite extraordinary, so he directly asked the 3 divine kings for a copy. At the same time, Su Fang also formed a formation, which turned into seals that merged into the Tao Palace of heaven and earth. As the flames burned wildly, the Tao Palace of heaven and earth in the form of a flying knife was completely stabilized, and it emitted astonishing sparks. Chi! Su Fang's eyes were filled with joy. With a thunderous shout, he took out a jade bottle that he had prepared beforehand and poured all the spiritual water in it onto the flying knife. Chi, chi, chi. White smoke filled the air, and faint great pregnant purple chi drifted out. When everything dissipated, a flying knife, emitting sharp light, floated in front of Su Fang. I've finally forged a divine artifact. Although it's only a low-grade divine artifact, I'm going to use this flying knife to display Su Fang's sharpness in the preliminaries of the Kamiko Hoshino tournament. Su Fang activated the flying knife. A cold light shot out and nimbly circled around a stone pillar that was as thick as a water bucket. The rock that was as hard as iron was cut through like tofu by the sharp knife light, and it collapsed with a loud bang. Although this flying knife was only a low-grade divine artifact and didn't have any special power, it was extremely sharp and nimble. With this divine artifact, Su Fang's strength had increased significantly. If combined with other divine abilities, Su Fong was confident that he could kill an elder who had surpassed the celestial realm. Moreover, Su Fong wasn't satisfied with this one flying knife. He was going to wait until the illusory fire cloud reached a new height before forging 18 flying knives to form a knife formation. By then, its power wouldn't be weaker than a middle-grade divine artifact. It's time to improve my results and my cultivation. Su Fong put away the flying knife divine artifact and walked out of the cave. With a burst of divine telekinesis, he activated the flaming cloud wings with the illusory fire cloud's heart sutra and flew up into the sky with Su Fong, leaving behind a trail of light that resembled a flaming cloud. Su Fong didn't need to deliberately search for his target. The moment he appeared in the valley, the brilliance released by the dozen stars above his head immediately attracted the participants who were searching for their target. They all rushed over. More than a dozen geniuses swept through the sky at an astonishing speed like a tornado and arrived in front of Su Fong in an instant. Mo Fenghua, it's actually you. Among the dozen geniuses who rushed over, one of them was actually Su Fong's acquaintance. It was the young master of the Huifeng divine world, Yi Yankong. In the Suiyu cave of the Chaos Ruins, Su Fong killed the Huifeng divine world's genius, Yi Yang. Yi Yankong had no choice but to swallow his anger because he was afraid of the terrifying power of the prehistoric inflammation. At that time, he had once declared that he would challenge Su Fong in the Divine Child competition. Who would have thought that they would really meet here? It was truly a small world. Currently, Yi Yankong's cultivation was still at the peak of the ninth heaven of the celestial god realm. The cultivation he saw now was the result of 10,000 years of cultivation in the artifact world. It wasn't his true strength. More than 80,000 years had passed in the outside world when Su Fong was trapped in the Great Vicissitudes formation. During this period of time, Yi Yankong's strength must have increased by quite a bit. It was possible that he had already broken through to the celestial realm. Mo Fenghua, not only will I destroy your divine body and steal your results, I will also kill your Yang god to avenge Yi Yang. Chapter 1934. In the inner world of the universal disk, the divine body was formed by the natural aura of heaven and earth and the aura of life. Even if the divine body was killed, the divine body would not be affected at all. -8. Reading book. Oh, once the sun spirit was destroyed, it meant death. Although the rules of the preliminaries did not forbid the contestants from killing the sun spirits of other contestants, very few people would kill the sun spirits of other contestants except for those who were bloodthirsty. Yi Yankong wanted to kill Su Fong's sun spirit. It was obvious that he wanted to kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Yankong's figure flashed out. His figure was in accordance with the law of the Great Path. He was like a breeze. Not only was he swift, but he was also erratic. It was difficult to capture his figure. The other geniuses from the Wind Divine realm did not intend to make a move. Instead, they spread out and surrounded Su Fong to prevent Su Fong from escaping. At the same time, they were also on guard against the other contestants who were rushing over from all directions. In their opinion, Yi Yankong alone was enough to crush Su Fong. There was no need for the others to interfere. Su Fong used the fire cloud wings and the fire cloud steps at the same time. He fought with Yi Yankong for more than 10 breaths, but he still could not get rid of him. After using the illusory fire cloud, Su Fong's speed was fast and nimble. However, Yi Yankong cultivated the great path of wind, which was known for its speed. Compared to him, Su Fong could not catch up. Mo Fenghua, go to hell. Hand of deep wind. Yi Yankong grinned viciously and grabbed Su Fong in the air with his right hand. Ching, 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 ching. It was as if there was a huge wind cave in his hand. It produced a sharp and terrifying wind sound and released a shocking suction force, causing the surrounding space to distort. Su Fong's figure flew uncontrollably toward Yi Yankong. He was about to fall into Yi Yankong's hand. It's you who deserves to die. Su Fong suddenly sneered. He opened his mouth and spat out a beam of cold light toward Yi Yankong's head. A divine weapon. All pills and divine artifacts cannot be brought into the artifact world. How can you have a divine artifact? Yi Yankong's divine light changed instantly. His eyes were filled with disbelief, as expected of the young master of the Huifeng divine realm. At the critical moment, he opened his mouth and spat out a wind blade, trying to shake off Su Feng's flying blade. Who would have thought that just as the wind blade was released, puff, Yi Yankong felt a sharp pain in between his eyebrows. His divine body's defense was broken, and the sharp blade light pierced through his head. Yi Yankong stared at the flying blade's afterimage in front of him and said in disbelief, "The passage of time ability. Why, you're the one who stole the primeval Dao fruit in the primeval ruins." Before he could finish, Yi Yankong's divine body started to crumble, turning into energy and life essence. His young immortal broke out of his shell and was automatically sent out of the world of the magic treasure by the universal disk's divine might. With the power of Su Feng's primordial spirit and the strange and powerful primordial spirit magic of Night Demon, it was not difficult to kill Yi Yankong's yang spirit. However, he did not do so. It was not that he did not want to, but that he did not want to exhaust the power of his primordial spirit. His goal was to obtain a higher result, not to kill. Swish, swish, swish. More than a dozen geniuses from the Huifeng divine realm had yet to recover from the shock of Yi Yankong's death. Su Feng activated the divine weapon and used the passage of time, great Dao ability at the same time. A mysterious power of time lingered on the flying blade. Under the divine might of the time power, the flying blade that the geniuses from the Huifeng divine realm saw was an instant ago. By the time they cast their divine arts to defend themselves, the flying daggers had already reached them in the blink of an eye, piercing through their heads or hearts. Puff, puff. In less than 10 breaths, a total of 15 geniuses from the Huifeng divine realm were killed by Su Feng. A low-grade divine weapon was nothing in the divine realm. Now, in the world of the magic treasure, its power was terrifying when combined with the passage of time. Su Feng was like a killing god. More than a dozen heavenly celestial experts were easily killed by him. Some of the participants who had heard the news wanted to take advantage of the situation, but when they saw this scene, they were so frightened that they turned around and left. The divine bodies of the geniuses from the Huifeng divine realm collapsed, turning into pure energy and life energy. They rushed towards Su Feng, creating a small whirlwind. Su Feng felt his divine body becoming stronger rapidly. His cultivation was also rising at a terrifying speed. He broke through the shackles of the peak of the 7th heavenly celestial realm and ascended to the 8th heavenly celestial realm. He only stopped when he was only one step away from the 9th heavenly celestial realm, killing the participants and using their divine bodies to increase my cultivation speed. My cultivation speed is astonishing. Su Feng was shocked. The speed of his cultivation speed was simply too shocking. It made him feel terrified. If this kind of cultivation speed existed in the outside world, he would be scared to death. The stars above the geniuses from the Huifeng divine realm, including the stars they obtained from killing the other participants, all moved towards Su Feng's head. There were more than 500 stars gathered above Su Feng's head. It was like a small galaxy. Looking at the many participants who were rushing over from all directions, Su Feng's eyes flashed with a sharp cold light. He activated his fire cloud wings and flew toward the place with the most people. It was like a cloud of fire sweeping across the sky. Chi, chi, chi. The speed of the fire cloud wings, the agility of the fire cloud steps, and the flying dagger divine weapon with the power of time. Su Feng was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. He unleashed a crazy massacre. Su Feng's strength was increasing crazily. The stars above his head became denser. His results in the preliminaries also soared at a terrifying speed. In the palace of the divine capital, Xianlingzi saw Su Feng's light spot colliding with other light spots. Then, it quickly swallowed the surrounding light spots and bloomed with resplendent light. Xianlingzi's hand shook violently. A strand of white beard was forcibly pulled off by him. However, he did not notice it at all. He stared at the light screen dumbfoundedly. Master Kuan-Su was shocked and pleasantly surprised. The three divine kings secretly said, "Senior is finally showing his power." The experts from the other divine realms were attracted. Some were surprised, and most were disdainful. In their opinion, Mo Fenghua's cultivation was only at the second firmament of the heavenly god realm. How big of a wave could he stir up in the universe disc world? The explosion at this time was just a flash in the pan. On the Kamiko Hoshino list in the sky above the divine capital, Su Fang's ranking also underwent a shocking change. At this time, more than half of the preliminaries had passed. The rankings on the Divine Sun list were basically fixed. Moreover, Su Fang's results changed too quickly. It was impossible not to attract people's attention. Mo Fenghua's name rapidly rose from the bottom of the Divine Sun list. More than 2 million. After quickly breaking through the 1 million mark, it did not stop climbing. 500,000, 300,000. Just as Mo Fenghua's name appeared on the Divine Sun list, it immediately disappeared and appeared at a higher position. Looking from below, it was like a bolt of lightning, rapidly snaking up the Divine Sun list. On Hidden Soul Island, the many higher-ups of Kuan-Su's divine sect were all shocked and immediately fell into ecstasy. I knew it. Fenghua is definitely not a fish in a pond. First Elder, what I said before wasn't wrong, right? The most excited was none other than Ling Xiangmei. Every time Su Fang's ranking changed, it would cause her to cry out in surprise. The yellow-browed First Elder's expression was very awkward, but he had no choice but to put on a smiling face. At the same time, he was also thinking of ways to resolve some of the grudges between him and Xianlingzi. Weapon Refinement Master, Time Divine Ability, Fire Divine Ability, Earth Divine Ability. Mo Fenghua actually grasps so many powerful techniques. This child is very extraordinary. If he wants to obtain the primordial earth flame, I'm afraid that it will take some effort. The huge change in Su Fang's ranking also attracted Qishao Shinjuan's attention. Borrowing the power of the universal disc, he was able to clearly see everything that happened in the world of the universal disc. Seeing the various powerful methods Su Fang displayed, Qishao Shinjuan's eyebrows furrowed and his deep eyes revealed astonishment. The Star Below God Realm's Realm Master also noticed Su Fang and immediately sent people to investigate Su Fang's background, paying special attention. Mo Fenghua, why is this name so familiar? A black-robed person from the assassin organization, Soulless, looked at the Kamiko Hoshino list and said in astonishment. Another person said, Xia Qijuan previously pleaded with the boss to send experts to help him kill an enemy. His name is Mo Fenghua. Someone who could be hated by Xia Qijuan is obviously not an ordinary person. Third brother, go and investigate this person's background. Who knows, he might be the target of Soulless in the future. Under the attention of countless people, Mo Fenghua's name finally stopped at around the 9,000th place and didn't change much. Being in the 9,000th place meant that he had the qualifications to pass the preliminaries. However, in the body competition where so many geniuses gathered, this ranking was nothing. Moreover, the preliminaries hadn't ended yet. No one could predict the final result. Thus, people gradually lost interest in Su Fang. On the Divine Sun list, Bai Holan's name was still on it. However, what was different from before was that Bai Holan encountered a huge challenge. A contestant by the name of Song Jia came from an unknown divine realm. Like a dark horse that had appeared out of nowhere, he quickly made his way to second place. Moreover, he closed the gap with Bai Holan at an astonishing speed and left the other participants far behind. Song Jia's appearance not only alarmed the Star Below God realm, but also Qishao Shinjun. Fu, 9 truths, 9 sons, after 100 years of crazy killing, Su Fang once again entered a state of hibernation. He went deep into a cave in the depths of the earth and entered a state of cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 200 years had passed. There were less than 200 years left until the end of the preliminaries. Su Fang, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. A majestic aura swept out from his body. The entire cave, Even the mountain range and the earth were affected by Su Fang's aura. As if resonating, the whole place shook with a loud bang. Su Fang's current aura was not only majestic, it also carried the aura of the great Tao of Earth. His current cultivation was no longer at the heavenly God realm, but the heavenly God realm. Chapter 1935. True gods cultivated their divine bodies, divine dwellings, and condensed divine vitality. Divine realm deities communicated with nature through yang spirit and dharma power. Their divine dwellings were more vast and profound, and their divine vitality was stronger. They could also activate the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and display the power of nature. Divine Emperor Realm was a deeper level of contact with the origin of the way of heaven. They understood the principle of great ways, and their ability to control nature was stronger. At the peak of the Divine Emperor Realm, they could control a divine world, like the Emperor of the Divine World. The Divine Emperor Realm was also divided into 9 levels. Those below the 3rd level were usually called Lower Divine Emperors. Ling Xiangmei and other elders of Kuan Su's holy clan were at this level. Those from the 4th level to the 6th level were called Middle Divine Emperors. Xianlingzi, the leader of Kuan Su's holy clan, was a Middle Divine Emperor. Those above the 7th level were called Upper Divine Emperors. Elder Huang Mei was an Upper Divine Emperor at the 8th level, while Master Kuan Su was at the peak of the 9th level. He was relatively weak among the masters of small worlds. In the universal Dis world, Su Fang killed a large number of participants and devoured their bodies. His cultivation base continued to rise, and he finally broke through the shackles of the heavenly deity realm and stepped into the deity emperor realm. Of course, when he left the universal disk, he would definitely fall back to the divine God realm. Even if he could bring his cultivation out, it would be impossible for him to reach the divine emperor realm. But this breakthrough also brought great benefits to Su Fang. Whether it was in the small world, the big world, or the heavens and earth, a practitioner's cultivation was the process of constantly communicating, understanding, and controlling the universe. Su Fang stepped into the divine emperor realm, which meant that his understanding of the universe had reached a new level. It was a sublimation and transformation from the appearance of nature to the essence. Although he couldn't bring his cultivation out of the divine emperor realm, reaching a higher level in advance would be of great benefit to Su Fang's future cultivation and the improvement of his current strength. Chaotic formless seal. Su Fang suddenly formed a seal. The ground under his feet burst out a majestic and chaotic gravitational force. The gravitational field in the space became extremely heavy in some places, while other places released a powerful repulsive force, making it extremely chaotic. Boom! Boom! Under the power of the chaotic gravity and repulsive force, some caves and rocks were shattered by the gravity, while some rocks were shot out like cannonballs by the repulsive force. After the earth quaked and the mountain swayed, the entire mountain collapsed. Su Fang flew out from the collapsed rocks. After entering the Divine Emperor realm, Su Fang's chaotic earth seal was 10,000 times stronger than when he was in the true immortal realm and 100 times stronger than when he was in the Divine Emperor realm. Because Su Fang had firmly grasped the laws of gravity of the earth Grand Tao. The strength of cosmic laws was the ability to control nature. Only those who had mastered cosmic laws could become emperors. That was the strength of the Divine Emperor layer. In the universal disk, one could continuously improve their cultivation by cultivating or killing competitors. This was the accumulation of energy. However, the comprehension of cosmic laws was the cultivation of Grand Tao. No matter how magical the universal disk was, it could not allow a god to improve his mastery of cosmic laws in a short time. Therefore, in the world of the magic treasure, it was possible to improve one's cultivation from the divine god realm to the divine emperor realm, but it was impossible to improve one's mastery of cosmic laws to the divine emperor realm. Su Fang was undoubtedly a heretic. That was because he had a chaotic divine spark. A chaotic divine spark contained any grand Tao in the world. Whether it was the Grand Tao of the five elements, the Grand Tao of swords, sabers, space, time, and many other Grand Taos, it could be said to be all-inclusive. Merging with the chaotic divine spark allowed Su Fong to communicate with the chaotic power, control all the forces born from the chaotic power, and comprehend all the Grand Tao laws. In the universal disk, as his cultivation increased, Su Fong's cultivation of nature also increased. It was natural for him to comprehend a kind of cosmic law of the earth Grand Tao. This was talent and also a kind of fate. It was hard not to be convinced. After 200 years of hibernation, Su Fong's harvest was not only this. He activated the illusory fire cloud. His arms and upper body turned into a burning cloud of fire. The divine flame might covered an area of 100 miles, forming an astonishing flame domain. However, compared to the great world, the current state of the illusory fire cloud was only a small success. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 18 flying daggers circled around Su Fong, forming a formation. Wherever the sharp daggers swept, faint scratches were left in the void. There are less than 200 years left. It's time to reap the final results. Next, let's kill to our heart's content. As the flaming cloud wings flapped, Su Fong swept across 10,000 miles in an instant. The strength of the divine emperor realm was so powerful. As the end of the preliminaries approached, the number of contestants decreased. It was not easy to find a target. However, for Su Fong, it was not difficult at all. Activating the sensing ability of a divine emperor realm deity, coupled with the divine life shrinking technique, he easily captured the position of other contestants. Then, a bloody massacre began. Geniuses fell in Su Fong's dagger formation one after another. Their divine bodies became the nutrients for Su Fong to increase his cultivation. The stars above their heads became Su Fong's results. Su Fong's ranking on the Kamiko Hoshino list was also rising at an astonishing speed. In the next 10 years, Su Fong's ranking rose from over 9,000 to over 5,000. Then, he rushed all the way into the top 1,000 in an unstoppable manner. He showed no signs of stopping. Madness. Su Fong's ranking was rising crazily. Kuan Su's divine sect in the sky above Hidden Soul Island was also in a frenzy. Outside the universal celestial disk, Qishao Shinjuan's eyes flashed with shock. He separated his consciousness and entered the divine artifact world to pay attention to Su Fong's every move. Not only did he advance to the divine emperor realm, but he also mastered an earth great Tao law. His divine flame, aura, and divine artifact are all extraordinary. How is this possible? His divine spark is only mid-grade earth rank. How can he master a law at the heavenly god realm? Moreover, his divine spark is of the earth element. How can he master such powerful divine flame, aura, and time great Tao ability? Can prehistoric inflammation change one's divine spark? Mo Fenghua obviously learned refining from the three divine kings. However, how many years has he been refining? How can he refine a low-grade divine artifact? This child's talent is almost on par with Bai Holan and Song Jie. If it wasn't for his low cultivation, he might even surpass those two geniuses. Qishao Shinjun was shocked. At the same time, he frowned. It would be very difficult to snatch prehistoric inflammation from Su Fong. In the past, Qishao Shinjun didn't make a move on Su Fong because he was apprehensive about the three divine kings. Now it was all because of Su Fong. With the strength he had shown, it should not be difficult for him to make it into the top 100 in the finals and become the god of Star Billow. Once he became a divine son, it would attract the attention of the upper echelons of the stellar field if they wanted to touch him. It would bring a lot of trouble. Could this child be the peerless genius that Sheng Wuji and Mo Tiangong put on the primordial chaos golden roll? Qishao Shinjun couldn't help but have some doubts. However, he quickly dispelled the idea. Although Su Fong's talent was extraordinary, it was far from enough to enter the primordial chaos golden roll. It seems that I have to think of a way to snatch prehistoric inflammation in the finals. Qishao Shinjun calculated in his mind. Not only Qi Shao Shanjun, but the Star Billow Realm Lord was also very surprised. He immediately sent someone to find Master Koan Su and ask about Su Fong's background. After learning that Su Fong had transformed from a disdainful good-for-nothing to his current state, the Star Billow Realm Lord was very surprised. In the end, he couldn't help but sigh. Extraordinary people often have extraordinary pasts. What especially shocked the Star Billow Realm Lord was that Su Fong could actually survive the conflict between the Ji people and the Sanskrit. Even Master Koan Su wasn't very clear about the inside story. This made the Star Billow Realm Lord feel that Su Fong's background was somewhat mysterious. Then, the Star Billow Realm Lord asked Master Koan Su to give Xianlingzi a supreme-grade divine weapon as a reward. Although the reward wasn't heavy, it came from the hands of the Star Billow Realm's supreme ruler. This made Xianlingzi so excited that his mouth almost split open to his ears. His entire person floated, as if he was flying into the clouds. The realm lords and big shots from other small realms and forces looked at Xianlingzi with jealousy and envy. Some people took the initiative to come forward and befriend Xianlingzi and Master Koan Su. This made Master Koan Su feel very proud and elated. Xianlingzi, on the other hand, became even more complacent. Mo Fanghua, that killing maniac is here. Let's go. In the inner world of the Universal Disc, Su Fong's reputation quickly spread among the participants. His fame was great, but he couldn't be compared to Bai Holan and Song Jia. Bai Holan's position as the #1 expert was unshakable, and Song Jia was even more infamous. Not only was he powerful, he was also madly bloodthirsty. The participants that were killed by him didn't just have a divine body. Even their sun spirit couldn't escape.